What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 5 decimeters. 081. Muguruma Kensai doesn't make him feel happy. Advertise here. Now, what we need to focus on most is Soul Society's top-level combat capability. Now, Bai Ye's name will be added to the top combat power. Aizen smiled softly. I admire you Bai Ye very much, both inside and outside the words. This is a person of the same kind as him. Although he cannot be friends because of different goals, it is still difficult to hide his appreciation for Bai Ye. Below, the Espada members also nodded with solemn expressions. Harabel gritted his teeth. During this period, Bai Ye's name was not only famous in Soul Society, but even in Hueco Mundo, it was enough to stop children crying at night. The power to kill Espada easily. If Bai Ye hadn't taken the lead in breaking through, they wouldn't have been defeated so quickly and completely. Baragan and others also silently listed Bai Ye as an opponent who definitely needs more attention. Looking down at Espada, Aizen narrowed his eyes slightly. After all, these thus were not his direct subordinates and were influenced by many aspects. Baragan harbors evil intentions, Stark is bent on fishing. Only people like Harabel and Grimjow are more loyal to themselves. Talk about it. Recently in Soul Society, besides Bai Ye, there are some interesting people. Ichimaru Jin. Tusen Kanami. Although Ichimaru Jin's purpose is impure and he has the intention to kill himself, he can be called the most top genius besides Bai Ye. What's more, Aizen also wants to know how Ichimaru Jin will kill him in the end. And Tusen Kanami. He is born blind, and has the potential of captain-level combat power. Can perfectly evade the control of his own Kyoka Suigetsu. Such people must be brought under their control, otherwise they will be destroyed directly. It is too dangerous to leave them alone. Aizen shook the teacup gently. He cannot let such uncertain factors affect his plans. Not to mention, he had also communicated with Tusen Kanami before, and the two had surprisingly similar views on Soul Society. After solving the problem of moving chess pieces. Naturally, Hogyoku's experiments cannot be stopped. It is best to perfect it to a certain level again. After finding Urahara Kazuki's Hogyoku, you can fuse it to get the most perfect Hogyoku. At that time, this is the beginning of the new world. Seireitei. Although several days have passed since Shutide invaded. But, the intensity of the incident has not decreased at all, but has become more and more intense. Bai Ye's power has reached a new peak in the entire Soul Society. It has even surpassed veteran captains such as Kyoraku Shunsui and Jashiro Yukitake. Even because of this public pressure, Central 46 all made a statement and no longer banned Bai Ye from entering and leaving the Seireitei. Although, this decree is optional, but it also expresses Central 46's attitude towards day and night. That's what a man should do. The civilians gathered together and sighed, their eyes full of longing when they mentioned Bai Ye. Central 46 has always been regarded as the embodiment of fairness and justice. In the past 1,000 years, the only people who can make Central 46 regress are the young Captain Yamamoto and Bai Ye. But, right now, Gote 13, headquarters. There are black and white bungalows everywhere, but compared with residential houses, the decoration of these bungalows is extremely simple and full of crisp and neat atmosphere. And, the headquarters covers an extremely large area, even several times larger than the clans of the Four Nobles. It is considered a giant in the entire Jingling court. Thousands of Shinigami live there. This is Soul Society's strongest violent organization and the place with the highest force value. Only, just today, Gote 13 an unexpected guest came. In the huge and spacious martial arts arena. Ding 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 ding. From time to time, there were sounds of swords clashing, and around them were thousands of Shinigami, Shiba Isshin, Kyoraku Shunsui and other captains wearing Black Death Tyrant uniforms, who also stopped to watch from a distance. In their sight, a young captain with short silver hair and strong muscles was fighting with a tall man dressed as a ronin with a sea urchin head and a ferocious scar on his face. Only, Muguruma Kensai, the captain of Division 9, was dwarfed and vulnerable in front of that ronin. Hateful, Muguruma Kensai screamed hard, his body covered with sweat, stomach stasis and traces of battle. But, in front of Zaraki Kenpachi, he was like a baby wielding a big stick, and he easily dodged any attack as if he had been seen through. However, Zaraki Kenpachi's casual slash made him feel as if he was facing an abyss of fear. Zero, please ask for flowers. What kind of monster is this? Not far away, the other captains who were watching the battle, Kyoraku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukitake and others looked at Zaraki Kenpachi's battle with their eyes widened. Today, Gote 13 here comes a madman. I came to look for a captain challenge, and my wife wanted to apply for a captain level position. Everyone naturally knew that Zaraki Kenpachi had killed Hueco Mundo's admiral before, and he was considered a hero of Soul Society, so Muguruma Kensai volunteered to test Zaraki Kenpachi's power. Result. As you can see now, Muguruma Kensai has been beaten so hard that the light has gone out of his eyes. Zaraki Kenpachi's fighting style is like a wild beast, biting and not letting go, and his swordsmanship and spiritual power far exceed those of ordinary captains. Point 0. Seeing the miserable Kensai, Urahara Kazuki held his forehead helplessly. Regarding Zaraki Kenpachi's combat power, he had just seen it a few days ago. Although he wanted to persuade Muguruma Kensai not to take action and let Kyoraku and other veteran captains deal with Zaraki Kenpachi. Pity. Liu Che didn't seem to take his words seriously. As for Unohana Retsu, looking at the battle between the two, his eyes were a little solemn. Hundreds of years ago, she once fought with the young Zaraki Kenpachi. At that time, Kenpachi was just a teenager, but the power he could unleash could even compete with the captain. Even though she tried her best at that time, she could not defeat Zaraki Kenpachi. Instead, he left a scar. And now, for some reason, Zaraki Kenpachi's strength is definitely far inferior to what it was a few hundred years ago. Although his combat power is still terrifying now, it cannot be compared with what it was a few hundred years ago. Could it be that he sealed himself? Unohana Retsu murmured in his mind. Now, the battle in the field is still going on. I saw Zaraki Kenpachi knock Muguruma Kensai away with a knife, and then put Zanpakutō on his shoulder out of boredom. Tisk, boring. He was uninterested. Muguruma Kensai, before he could even warm up his body, was over. When deciding whether to fight Bai Ye first or join Gotei 13 first, he chose the latter. Pity. Muguruma Kensai couldn't make him feel the pleasure river. 082. Captain Kenpachi. Go and discuss with Bai Ye. Advertise here. And further away. The first team's team building, above the attic. An old man with a white beard and a bald head looked at the battle between Zaraki Kenpachi and Muguruma Kensai below and nodded slightly. The fighting style is like that of a beast. Furthermore, there may be a more terrifying power sleeping in his body, but it has not been fully unleashed. However, even if it is just this, Zaraki Kenpachi is qualified to serve as the captain of Team 11. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni side, finalized the candidate for the captain of the 11th Division, and informed Kyoraku Shunsui of his decision through the communication device. Subsequently, he narrowed his eyes slightly, as if through the layers of buildings in Seireitei, he saw the direction of Kaya Pavilion outside. That's where Bai Ye is. Compared to the rampaging Zaraki Kenpachi, he prefers Bai Ye. Whether it is his combat power of 540, or his mind, it is far beyond ordinary. It would be perfect if Bai Ye came to be the captain of a certain team. Unfortunately, Yamamoto shook his head slightly. If you want Bai Ye to join, you must pay a huge price. And with Bai Ye's character, he is not controlled at all and can do whatever he wants, and the chance of causing trouble is much higher than that of ordinary people. Let's discuss it later. Now, Gotei 13. In the wide square, Muguruma Kensai was already out of breath, with a bruised nose and face, and was helped to stand up by the team members. Following this, the members of the 4th Division came over to bandage and treat him. Now, he looked at Zaraki Kenpachi, his eyes full of respect and awe. At the same time, I still feel a little frustrated. The leader of the Gotei 13, who is proud of himself, is either being beaten or on the way to being beaten. This simply made him doubt his life. If Zaraki Kenpachi hadn't had any killing intent, I'm afraid he would be a corpse now. Zaraki Kenpachi didn't even use Shikai, and only relied on techniques and Reiatsu to make him breathless. On the side, Kyoraku Shunsui looked at Zaraki Kenpachi with a salty expression. Your captaincy trial has been successful, and the captain agreed to give you the title of contemporary Kenpachi, captain of the 11th Division. It doesn't matter, it's just that the fighting here is very boring. Why don't you come and fight with me? Zaraki Kenpachi grinned and looked at the captains around him. Hiroko Shinji, Muguruma Kensai, Unohana Retsu. As for Kyoraku Shunsui, as one of the most senior captains, his personal combat power is also the strongest below Captain Yamamoto. It was quite a pleasure to fight with him. No need. Kyoraku Shunsui shook his head and decisively refused. He just wanted to hang out and earn a living, and had no desire to fight Zaraki Kenpachi. Isn't it good to live a stable life? Why fight? Tisk. Zaraki Kenpachi put away the long knife in boredom. Since you don't want to fight, then I will go find Bai Ye. After he became Kenpachi, he didn't even want to see the 11th Division team building. Now he just wanted to find a strong man and have a hearty battle. Bai Ye. Kyoraku Shunsui smiled bitterly and shook his head. As expected, people are afraid of being famous. Currently, apart from Kidō and Gotei 13, the most famous Soul Society player is Bai Ye from Keikaku. Before, there were also rumors that Zaraki Kenpachi wanted to fight Bai Ye. Today, it turned out to be true. Rear. Hiroko Shinji looked surprised, with an expression in his eyes as if he was watching a show, while Unohana Retsu remained silent. They have all seen Bai Ye take action, absolutely the strongest echelon under Captain Yamamoto, and Zaraki Kenpachi is not weak to others. Defeating the captain-level powerhouse is as easy as eating and drinking. But, Unohana Retsu has full confidence in Bai Ye. Although she had seen Zaraki Kenpachi in the victorious period before, Bai Ye's various weird abilities were even close to the rules. Zaraki Kenpachi finished. He walked out of Gotei 13's team building directly with the knife on his shoulder, and walked in the direction of Kayi Pavilion without any concealment. The other captains, as well as the members of Gotei 13, all followed. After all, this might be a battle that only happens once in 10 years in the Serenity Court. Unless Captain Yamamoto personally takes action, these two powerful men with second-level spiritual power and destructive power represent the pinnacle of Soul Society's combat power. Watch the two of them fight. Not only for ordinary team members, but also for captain-level experts, it has great benefits. Even though Muguruma Kensai was sore all over, he was supported by Love Akawa and Hiroko Shinji and walked towards the direction of Rukongai Flower Night Pavilion. Zaraki Kenpachi's whereabouts are no secret. Now, many civilians in Jingling-ting and Rukongai saw Zaraki Kenpachi's fighting spirit, and understood Zaraki Kenpachi's purpose from the mouths of some Gotei 13 members. What? Zaraki Kenpachi is going to fight Bai Ye? Everyone was talking about it. There was strong shock in his eyes, as well as the emotion of watching a show. You know, during the invasion of Hueco Mundo a few days ago, Bai Ye and Zaraki Kenpachi killed an admiral of Hueco Mundo one after another. Both of them were recognized as strong men in Soul Society. Now, the two of them are going to fight, which is a big event that will shock the entire Soul Society. Now, everyone's eyes are focused on Y Pavilion. Now, Y Pavilion. A handsome young man was lying on the soft fur sofa, enjoying the massage service from Feijun, squinting his eyes comfortably. In front of him, there was a group of trained dancers, playing music and performing a pleasing dance. Pity. The current technology in this world has not yet developed. Bai Ye shook his head. If there were games, time would pass quickly, but it's not bad now. There were no entertainment activities in ancient times, which just meant that there were no matchmaking activities for the residents of Shaokong. The upper-class people spend even more money than modern people. 1.7. He and Hyjin were close to each other, slowly releasing Reiatsu. After passing through Hyjin's body, Reiatsu was weakly strengthened, and then entered his own body. It can be said, as long as Hyjin is here, it is equivalent to a Reiatsu amplifier that can accelerate his own practice. He doesn't have to do anything, he only needs to release some Reiatsu. Bai Ye opened the system panel. The value of the second-class spiritual power represented above has been increased from 65% to 67%. In just a few days, it increased by 2%. But, just when he was enjoying life and drinking wine. Lord Bai Ye, it's not good. Mama-san rushed in a panic. Zaraki Kenpachi is heading towards Rukongai now, saying he wants to discuss with you. 0.083. Unit of measurement of combat power. Advertise here. Zaraki Kenpachi. Discuss. Rear. There was also a hint of worry in Feijun's eyes. She had also heard about Zaraki Kenpachi's situation. According to legend, he was also an incredible strong man. The admiral who killed Hueco Mundo. But, thinking of the trembling of the earth before, the worries in Feijun's heart were inexplicably relieved a lot. Master Bai Ye has the kind of power that is comparable to natural disasters. He can win even if he faces an opponent like Zaraki Kenpachi. Listening to Mama San's panicked words, Bai Ye's expression remained unchanged and he just nodded slightly. He casually took a sip of wine. Zaraki Kenpachi. It seems that the expansion of his reputation has allowed this fighting madman to find him. Time flies. Zaraki Kenpachi does not hide his figure. He swaggered through the gates of Jingling-ting and Soul Society, carrying Zanpakutō, and walked in the direction of Kayi Pavilion. Not long after, a magnificent, dozens of meters high, seemingly luxurious restaurant came into view, and the air was still vaguely filled with the poisonous smell of 21 liquor. It's quite a nice place. Zaraki Kenpachi grinned. Behind him, Kusajishi Yakiru was pacing boredly. She just followed Zaraki Kenpachi and came here to be a cheerleader. And, she also had a trace of curiosity about Bai Ye. After all, although she had lived in Rukongai before, she had heard rumors about Bai Ye. Naturally, I still have some curiosity about such a strong man who can do whatever he wants and has strong combat power. It would be nice if we could meet him once. As for further afield, Hiroku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukitaki, Shiba Ishin and other captains were chatting casually and waiting for Bai Ye to appear. After all, Zaraki Kenpachi has come to visit him. With Bai Ye's character, he will naturally not retreat. Even if he didn't want to fight, he would probably find Zaraki Kenpachi in the way. It can be said, the battle between the two is inevitable. Ishin, what happened to the Shiba family? Hiroku Shunsui joked casually. Now, since Bai Ye killed Kuchiki Yinling, the Kuchiki family was in a very bad situation in the Jingling court. A large number of family properties were annexed by other nobles, and a large part of the vassal small and medium-sized nobles also broke away. The remaining three nobles, the Tsunayashiro family, the Shihouin family, and the Shiba family, became the biggest beneficiaries. Gained a lot of benefits. Haha, I can only live with it. Shiba laughed. Scratched his head. During this time, he returned to the Shiba family to take charge of the family's chores. After all, Shiba Konkaku is still studying at the Spiritual Arts Academy, and Shiba Kaien, who graduated long ago, is Jing. I have no time to worry about Gotei 13. The group has returned to the team in recent days. Good thing. Mr. Yamamoto didn't say much. Although, the Shiba family has very little wealth and cannot compete with the Shihouin and Tsunayashiro families, but it has also gained a small part of the Kuchiki family's heritage and property. The dying Shiba family finally survived and got rid of the title of the four weakest families. Now, the weakest is the Kuchiki family. Speaking of which, I would also like to be grateful to Bai Ye, if it weren't for him. Shiba Yishin secretly thought that if Bai Ye hadn't taken action, the combat power of the Kuchiki family would have been greatly weakened and the Kuchiki family would have fallen into chaos. The Shiba family is probably going to be removed from the 4 major nobles, and even the family mansion will be sold off to develop in Rukongai. It can be said, the Shiba family was able to recover and took away all the Kuchiki family's property. The root cause is because of Bai Ye. On the side, Hirako Shinji and his vice-captain Aizen Sosuke also arrived, ready to watch this rare battle in Soul Society. As for further afield, there were densely packed civilians from Rukongai and Jingling-ting, and they all looked like they were eating melons. They would rarely see such captain-level strong men in their lives. What's more, it's the contemporary Kenpachi, and Bai Ye, who is famous for killing captain-level warriors like killing chickens. This Zaraki Kenpachi came to challenge him as soon as he became a contemporary Kenpachi. He must have his own confidence. After all, he is Kenpachi. In name, he is the most capable captain of the Gotei 13. Moreover, this Kenpachi is different from the previous embarrassing Kenpachi Kigenho. This is the real strong man who killed Hawako Mundo Admiral. The battle between him and Bai Ye was like a fight between a dragon and a tiger. Everyone was talking a lot, and their eyes were focused on the Flower Knight Pavilion and the direction of Zaraki Kenpachi. But, I'm more optimistic about Bai Ye. After all, he gained his reputation through fighting, and he also has all kinds of incredible abilities. Hey, you don't understand. Zaraki Kenpachi is also very famous in Rukongai. He has fought against strong players in Rukongai and won easily. If he can defeat Bai Ye, he can deservedly win the title of the strongest in Rukongai, the title. Everyone was talking. There are mixed opinions about Bai Ye and Zaraki Kenpachi. But there is no doubt that this will be a hard fight. Both of them have extremely strong strength. It seems that the fight will last for a long time. There is no way they can be defeated in seconds like before. At this time, Zaraki Kenpachi looked at the gathered crowd with an expressionless face. With just a loud bang, the golden Reiatsu was released, and the entire world seemed to be filled with a huge golden beam of light, exuding a strong and unparalleled power. Even if he claims his own strength. But his spiritual power is still at an extremely high level among second-class people. No commoner of this class of Rukongai can resist it. Release Reiatsu ahead of Schedule 067. It is also to make those who lack strength retreat. After all, a fight of this level, even if it is just the aftermath, may cause huge casualties. Back up quickly. Many civilians felt short of breath under this Reiatsu, their throats seemed to be pinched hard by a big hand, their faces became pale, and large drops of cold sweat flowed from their foreheads. At this time, their eyes looked at Zaraki Kenpachi with horror. Naturally, they knew the horror of the aftermath of the fight, so they watched from a distance, at least several miles away. However, even so, Zaraki Kenpachi's power seemed to explode in front of them, making them retreat further. With this kind of power, no wonder it can kill Hawako Mundo. Even though I had met Captain Muguruma Kensai before, he could not give me such a sense of oppression. Compared with Zaraki Kenpachi, there is simply a gap between heaven and earth. Everyone was talking and looking at Zaraki Kenpachi with awe in their eyes. Not far away, Muguruma Kensai, who was being supported, heard their exchange and touched his fists with a dark look on his face. Did not expect. Has his reputation spread to Rukongai? He was disgusted by these common people and his body was whipped. Now Muguruma Kensai is speechless, feeling as if he has become a unit of measurement for combat power. 0.084. No Shikai. How can it be? Advertise here. At this time, Y Pavilion. Due to the Reiatsu of Zaraki Kenpachi from the outside, the entire Ka-yi Pavilion emitted a crunch and crunch sound. The Reiatsu covered the entire Ka-yi Pavilion like a mountain roar and a tsunami, making it tremble slightly. The maids inside, as well as the drinkers who were drinking, all staggered around, and some even fell to the ground with their legs weak. Hateful. Who is it? It will feel better when Master Bai Ye takes action. The drinkers were already angry at this time. The consumption at Y Pavilion was not low. Is it easy for them to come here? Now someone else disturbed my interest. Only, when they saw Zaraki Kenpachi outside through the window, they all kept their mouths shut in a tacit understanding. Of course they can't afford to offend Master Bai Ye, nor can they afford to offend Zaraki Kenpachi. Any one of these two people can kill them like crushing ants. Master Bai Ye, outside. Mama-san looked at the outside world, Zaraki Kenpachi with full Reiatsu, and frowned slightly. But, Bai Ye didn't answer, just patted Fei Zhen's head and walked towards the outside world. Although he didn't have much interest in playing against Zaraki Kenpachi, he couldn't let Zaraki Kenpachi stand in front of the Flower Knight Pavilion. After all, this was his source of income. He blocked the door. It's equivalent to lowering your income. Master Bai Ye, be careful. Fei Zhen looked at Bai Ye's back with a well-behaved face, as if waiting for his triumphant return. Not long after, outside world. At this time, except for Reiatsu, a captain-level strongman who can face Zaraki Kenpachi directly. Other civilians stayed away from this place, but the enthusiasm on their faces did not diminish at all. They all looked in the direction of Y Pavilion with interest, waiting for Bai Ye to appear. Zaraki Kenpachi's spiritual power is really amazing. I was lucky enough to see Bai Ye take action last time. In my opinion, the Reiatsu of the two is almost the same. Quote. Some civilians began to analyze that Zaraki Kenpachi looked very oppressive in appearance, but in terms of just wielding Reiatsu, he was no stronger than Bai Ye. However, it is rumored that Zaraki Kenpachi was able to kill Hawako Mundo Admiral without using Bankai or even Shikai in the battle from beginning to end. If he uses Bankai in the battle with Bai Ye, even Bai Ye must be in a state of distress. Someone commented. After all, in the previous battle with Bai Ye, although Bankai was not used, there was Shikai. Compared with Zaraki Kenpachi, who had never used the power of Zanpakutō, he seemed naturally inferior. Is there a possibility that Zaraki Kenpachi doesn't know Shikai at all? Someone said weakly. After all, Bai Ye is so powerful and only knows Shikai. He has never used Bankai, and he is enough to kill captain-level warriors like a chicken. The same may be true for Zaraki Kenpachi, who only focused on honing his fighting skills and never studied his Zanpakutō abilities. Only. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding crowd burst into bursts of cheerful laughter. Ha ha ha, how is that possible? It's understandable that you don't know Bankai, but how can such a strong person not know Shikai? Zaraki Kenpachi is a powerful second-level spiritual power. No ordinary captain-level opponent is his opponent. To know. In Gote 13, as long as they are the strong ones at the level of chief officers, they all learned Shikai without exception, and even some extremely powerful chief officers who were as powerful as captains also learned Bankai, just like the chief officer Kuchiki Hibiki hundreds of years ago. Like a river, Zaraki Kenpachi is the new Kenpachi, how can he not even know Shikai? And not far away, the other captains listened to the discussion without too much emotion. After all, Shikai Bankai cannot directly evaluate a person's strength. Even Shihouin Yoruichi never uses the power of Zanpakutō in battle, but his white hits and Shunpo, who have been trained to their peak by themselves, are enough to display captain-level combat power. Same. The same is true for Zaraki Kenpachi and Shikai Bankai. As long as he can show enough combat power, no one cares about what his ability is. It's just that compared to hundreds of years ago, he is much weaker now. Unohana Retsu looked at Zaraki Kenpachi and sighed in his heart. If it were the complete Zaraki Kenpachi, she was really worried about whether she could cope with it day and night. After all, even though he was Kenpachi and was invincible to Rukongai, he was still powerless when facing Zaraki Kenpachi who was still a child. Bai Ye, aren't you coming out yet? In front of Y Pavilion. Zaraki Kenpachi was carrying Zanpakutō, with a hint of impatience on his face, and the hungry desire to fight in his heart seemed to swallow him up. If Bai Ye doesn't come out, he might go in to look for him. But, next moment, click, quote, click, deep footsteps sounded. A young man with a handsome face and a wine gourd walked out drunkenly. There was still a blush on his face after drinking, which made people feel at a glance that this man was just a drunkard and not a threat. Only, everyone present did not look down upon Bai Ye in the slightest. Especially Shiba Isshin, Hiroko Shinji and other captains who had seen Bai Ye take action in person, held their breath slightly. About Bai Ye, they know best. What kind of terrifying beast lurks beneath this seemingly harmless appearance? It can be said, if anyone despises Bai Ye because of his lazy appearance, death will follow him. Bai Ye will make him understand the consequences of despising himself. The people watching around saw Bai Ye's appearance and exclaimed that some girls were even more energetic. After all, from Zhao. Compared with the rough and unkempt Zaraki Kenpachi, it is the handsome and beautiful boy Bai Ye who can move their hearts more. Now Rukongai, Bai Ye has become the idol of boys and girls. Sir Bai Ye, you have to work hard every day. Bai Ye's little fans cheer him secretly in their hearts. Study. At this time, in front of Y Pavilion. Tisk, it's finally out. Zaraki Kenpachi looked at Bai Ye, and gently squeezed the handle of Zanpakutō. In that case, let's not talk too much, let's fight quickly. Said. There was a sound of, boom. The golden Reiatsu around Zaraki Kenpachi seems to be solidifying, and the aura exuded by his whole body is rising crazily, and the endless power seems to spread to the entire sky. The Reiatsu just now is not his limit. Only now does Zaraki Kenpachi show off his fangs. 0.085. Huh. Advertise here. Bai Ye, take my knife. Zaraki Kenpachi's excited voice came. Looking at Bai Ye standing dumbly in front of him, his figure did not stop. Instead, he slashed at Bai Ye Wolf with his backhand. The blade of the sword was powerful and heavy, splitting the air and emitting a harsh whistling sound. Under everyone's gaze, his Zanpakutō, which was crisscrossed with ravines and covered with jagged teeth, as if it was about to break off at any moment, became like a mountain, exuding an extremely terrifying sense of oppression. This kind of power has reached the limit of second-class spiritual power. All the captains exclaimed. The civilians were also shocked. If this knife struck their heads, they would be wiped out in an instant. Only. Zaraki Kenpachi, who was slashing towards Bai Ye, looked at Bai Ye who was motionless and even taking a sip of wine, with deep doubts in his eyes. He has seen desperate people. But he had never seen a strong man like Bai Ye who didn't stop him at all and was killed at his neck. Could it be that he is also a boring person? Zaraki Kenpachi was a little disappointed. Originally, he was looking forward to the battle with Bai Ye, but Bai Ye's performance disappointed him. 540. He wants a cut to the chase fight. Could it be? Does Bai Ye want to use this indifferent attitude towards fighting to force his residence? Think of this. Zaraki Kenpachi's whole body was tense to the extreme, at the level of being able to contract or release. He came here only to fight with Bai Ye, not to kill. If Bai Ye insisted on not wanting to fight, he would naturally not kill him. Now, from the outside world, the blade of the blade hit Bai Ye hard like a mountain, and everyone around him was worried about Bai Ye. On the Flower Night Pavilion, Mama Song and Feijun were also watching the battle between Bai Ye and Kenpachi by the window. Feijun bit her lip gently. Master Bai Ye, you must work hard. Although Bai Ye didn't draw his sword or resist for some reason. But Feijun felt that he must have his own reasons for doing so. Huh, the blade roared. In an instant, he arrived in front of Bai Ye. The strong wind blew his hair up, and everyone's eyes focused on Bai Ye. Only, Bai Ye still didn't draw the sword, but lightly stretched out an index finger to block the path of the blade. What? CBFB, Bai Ye, is he crazy? Outside world. Everyone exploded. They all felt that Bai Ye was not in his right mind. After all, who in his right mind would block a knife with his finger? Isn't this looking for death? Some timid Shinigami directly covered his face, unable to bear to see Bai Ye's fingers being chopped into pieces. Only, next moment, ding, the deafening sound of gold and iron clashing sounded, and huge waves of air spread wildly in all directions. The endless energy waves blew away all the land around Bai Ye and Zaraki Kenpachi. The smoke and dust gradually dispersed. Everyone hurriedly looked towards the field. Next moment, the originally noisy Rukongai immediately became quiet and completely silent. In the eyes of everyone, Bai Ye just stretched out a finger and stood there quietly, while opposite him, Zaraki Kenpachi waved the knife blankly, his eyes filled with disbelief. Everyone's eyes widened, their mouths opened wide, and they all rubbed their eyes, unable to believe what they saw with their own eyes. Stiff, petrified, numbskull, how is this possible? Bai Ye blocked Zaraki Kenpachi's attack with just one finger. Someone exclaimed in disbelief. Among them, some people even thought of the scene when Bai Ye and Kuchiki Shanghai were fighting, and it seemed that there was also a scene of Zanpakutō being swept away by one hand. Then, everyone thought that the difference in strength between the two was too big. After all, Bai Ye's Reiatsu at that time was already comparable to a second-class spiritual power, obviously surpassing Kuchiki Shanghai. In Soul Society, Reiatsu is the foundation of all power. If one has insufficient Reiatsu, no matter how weird the power is, even if Zanpakutō awakens the rule system, it will not have the slightest impact on those who are stronger than himself in Reiatsu. And now, Bai Ye's performance. It completely refreshed everyone's thoughts. You know, Zaraki Kenpachi's spiritual power is a genuine second-class spiritual power. Even among the second-class spiritual power, he is considered the best. Unless he breaks through the first-class spiritual power, ordinary people cannot be his opponent at all, let alone relying solely on can he stop his attack with just one finger. But, just today, Bai Ye did it. It's terrible, it's terrible. I kind of know why Byakuya Kuchiki, the previous generation Kenpachi, and why the Kuchiki silver bell died in his hands. How do you fight against such a monster? Everyone was awestruck. Although I don't know how Bai Ye did it, he was able to withstand Zaraki Kenpachi's entire attack with just one finger. This is really terrifying, so pervert, it's simply unimaginable. And the rear. The captains also widened their eyes. Hiroku Shunsui originally took a sip of tea and spurted it out. Hiroko Shinji's eyes widened and he rubbed his eyes as if he had seen something wrong. Jashiro Yukitaki couldn't even catch his breath, he was coughing violently. Unohana Retsu's expression was stunned, and his pupils were shaking. Even Aizen Sosuke's mouth Kakuzu twitched slightly. You know, even he would be injured if he took a knife from Zaraki Kenpachi. It seems. There are so many secrets hidden in Bai Ye. Aizen Sosuke whispered softly in his heart. The matter of Bai Ye's immune control has become well known not only in Soul Society, but even in Hueco Mundo. After all, every battle of Bai Ye has people collecting intelligence for analysis afterwards. There is no secret about his immune control. And now, he has an ability similar to immunity to damage. This effect is even more terrifying than immune control. Free of control and damage, and extremely powerful attack power. Anyone who fights Bai Ye will feel extremely uncomfortable and have a feeling that there is no way to start. At this time, in front of Y Pavilion, Zaraki Kenpachi held up Zanpakutō stiffly, his eyes widened like copper bells, looking straight at Bai Ye. Blocked. And, is it still just one finger? Zaraki Kenpachi whispered softly in his heart, and his whole worldview was refreshed. You know, he has experienced as many as 800 battles, but this is the first time he has seen an opponent like Bai Ye. But, the fact that Bai Ye has reached this point does not dissipate his fighting spirit, but makes Zaraki Kenpachi even more excited. Very good, worthy of the famous Bai Ye. Zaraki Kenpachi grinned, only such an opponent can make him go all out and let him feel the joy of fighting. 086. The power of one punch increases tenfold. Advertise here. Zaraki Kenpachi. I'm going to have fun today. Have a good fight. But, Bai Ye didn't answer, just took a sip of wine lazily. Zaraki Kenpachi. In the original work, after the plot begins, he is the captain of Gotei 13's 3rd Division. Possess Zanpakutō no Shen. It's Zanpakutō, the strongest physics student. And he himself is also called the Lord of Flat Cuts by many comic fans. Hundreds of years ago, she fought with Unohana Retsu and won, leaving a scar on Sister Hua's chest, causing Sister Hua to wear long braids hanging down her chest to cover up. After defeating Sister Hua, Zaraki Kenpachi was worried that he was too strong and would not be able to find an opponent who could fight him, so he sealed his power from the inside, leaving only a small part of it exposed to the outside. But even so, he is still one of the top captains. Later, when the Invisible Empire invaded, he was named one of the 5 Special Battle 5, along with Aizen, Ichigo, Urahara Kazuki and others. Only, Zaraki Kenpachi did not know Shikai and Bankai at the beginning. Later, because Sister Hua used her life to train him, Zaraki Kenpachi mastered Shikai. However, in the plot of Invisible Empire, Zaraki Kenpachi did not show much effect. The effect exerted is not even as important as Kuretsuchi Mayuri. Think of this. Bai Ye looked lazily at Zaraki Kenpachi in front of him. If he is allowed to regain his full strength, his combat power will definitely be no less than that of Captain Yamamoto. Only, the current Kenpachi is only in a sealed state and does not have a complete power zone. Aren't you going to draw your sword? Zaraki Kenpachi looked at the indifferent Bai Ye and grinned. If you don't draw your sword, then I will continue to attack. You are so powerful, I don't have to keep you anymore. Said. The golden Reiatsu suddenly exploded like a landslide and tsunami. Zaraki Kenpachi seemed to have grown in size, all the muscles in his body were tense, and the surrounding space seemed to be shaking crazily because of that powerful force. His eyes were full of excitement and he waved Zanpakutō in his hand. Hundreds of years ago, having Unohana Retsu barely made him feel the joy of fighting. And hundreds of years later, there was Bai Ye around. Everyone looked at the frantic Zaraki Kenpachi, and all raised their minds, concentrating on the battle in front of them. Zaraki Kenpachi is going crazy. You know, he was never so serious when he fought against Noitra and Muguruma Kensai. Is this all his strength? The onlookers were talking a lot. As for one person's face turned black, Muguruma Kensai was trembling slightly. Whip the corpse. Even now, everyone still hasn't forgotten to whip him to death. Just mention Noitra, but what do you mean by mentioning him? The wind howled, and Zaraki Kenpachi's bumpy Zanpakutō was waved in the air like an airtight one. Although it seems to be open and closed, it looks like it was made in heaven without any flaws. This is the instinct that Zaraki Kenpachi has honed through thousands of battles. This time Zaraki Kenpachi learned wisely and attacked Bai Ye from other directions, avoiding his palm. Rear. The other captains looked at Zaraki Kenpachi's performance and nodded slightly. According to the intelligence, Bai Ye previously resisted Kuchiki Shonghei's Zanpakutō with one hand, and now blocked Zaraki Kenpachi with only one finger. This means that Zongyi's weird ability is concentrated in the palm of his hand. But, they don't know that Bai Ye's ability is not limited to his palms, any part of his body can become the carrier of the sealing talisman and seal script. Be careful. Zaraki Kenpachi looked at Bai Ye, with a hint of excitement in his eyes. Even though Bai Ye had not drawn his sword until now, he did not feel any contempt in his heart. Instead, he used all his strength. Only, facing such an offensive, Bai Ye's expression remained unchanged and he just raised his palm slightly. Suddenly, the sky and the earth darkened. People seemed to hear some kind of weird cracking sound in their ears, as deafening as a roar. Then, they all looked at Bai Ye. Next to him, for some unknown reason, the space seemed to be twisting and exploding. The dark cracks in the space were like spider webs, isolating him from the outside world. Under everyone's gaze, Bai Ye's fists were wrapped with endless Reiatsu, as if they were about to condense into substance. It was a force like a natural disaster. Please give me flowers oh. This is Hiraku Shunsui. Muguruma Kensai and others' pupils shrank slightly, and they murmured in disbelief. He used the ability of white hits, that's right. But, even white hits, they have never seen such a pervert. Even before they take action, they can blast away the space with just their own pressure. What kind of monster is this? I'm afraid, the double bones of white hits that Mr. Yamamoto is proud of are nothing more than that. Zaraki Kenpachi, who was facing Bai Ye, felt even more awe-inspiring at this moment. Bai Ye's power was so powerful that even him, the long knife he waved in his hand became extremely sluggish. The space crack surrounding Bai Ye was like the deepest abyss, and the whole wanted to swallow it all up. The terrifying tearing force coming from it prevented him from making any progress. 0. If you continue to move forward, even his body will be torn apart and swallowed up by the endless space cracks. What kind of force is this? The corners of Zaraki Kenpachi's mouth twitched slightly. Now Bai Ye, protected by the space crack, is like an iron bastard, making it impossible for him to make a move. And the power accumulated in his fist is getting stronger and stronger, and I am afraid that he will reach the peak state in less than a few seconds. If he continues to accumulate. Think of this. Even Zaraki Kenpachi, who was famous for his fighting, felt a sense of powerlessness in his heart, but he did not give in. Even in this desperate situation, he still held the Zanpakutō in his hand tightly, thinking about how to deal with it. But, next moment, where Bai Ye was, the sky and the earth collapsed, and the earth was sinking crazily. The Y pavilion behind him was trembling crazily. If the quality of the building materials were not so good, the current Y pavilion would collapse in an instant. The energy accumulated in Bai Ye's fist became more and more powerful, gradually exceeding the limit of the second-level spiritual power, and reaching a terrifying and inexplicable state. The powerful pressure spread crazily in all directions, like a storm, and soon it spread. The entire Soul Society, all the power in his body was concentrated in this punch. And he got a doubled increase. 087. Bai Ye strategic level. Advertise here. At this time, Bai Ye looked at Zaraki Kenpachi, who was still fighting hard, and nodded lightly. It seems that although Zaraki Kenpachi is not good at conspiracy, his fighting spirit is top-notch, and no one can make him retreat. Although your one-punch man is powerful, it takes a certain amount of time to accumulate power, so it takes a few seconds. Originally, in a head-to-head confrontation, it was necessary to accumulate power in advance, which was a very fatal negative effect. But, in the process of accumulating strength, the space around you will be squeezed and exploded, resulting in the outside attack being unable to cause any harm to you. So, even if the forward swing is long, you don't have to worry about safety at all. And, if the enemy wants to run away, the one-punch man that he has charged up in advance is not useless. As long as the enemy is still within the coverage of his Reiatsu, he can teleport to him in an instant and punch him directly. If my future Reiatsu can cover the 3 realms, just like the Reiatsu after first team member Bankai. Bai Ye couldn't help but think of the Bankai of Shutara Senjumaru, a member of the first team in the original work, which truly covers the 3 realms. Just looking at the range, it is even wider than the coverage of Mr. Yamamoto. It can be said, wait until your Reiatsu is strong enough. In the 3 realms, let yourself run freely. And the problem of charging one-punch man will no longer be a problem. You can complete it by accumulating energy on the spot, and then use Taishu Flash Goddess to travel directly to the 3 realms freely. When you see the enemy, just punch him directly. At the same time, in the eyes of the outside world. Now Bai Ye's fists were shimmering, and his whole person revealed an aura as deep as the sea. The surrounding space collapsed, the earth sank, and the entire sky became dim. Everyone felt that the temperature of this space was rising sharply. Some people wiped the sweat from their foreheads and looked at Bai Ye with eyes full of fear and awe. No way, could it be that the energy in his body can already be connected to the outside world? It can even affect the environment. Hieraku Shunsui whispered softly. After all, Bai Ye's Zanpakutō does not have fire-based abilities, so the only moves that can affect the temperature and increase it are the moves he is currently charging. Then what exactly is going on? Aside, Jashiro Yukitaki also widened his eyes, staring straight at Bai Ye not far away, and his heart was beating fast. That kind of power. It made him feel as if he was facing Captain Yamamoto. Now Bai Ye's move is infinitely close to Captain Yamamoto's spiritual power. First-class spiritual power. Impossible. Bai Ye is obviously only a third-class spiritual power. Although we are not far away from the second-level spiritual power now, there is still a long way to go to break through the first-level spiritual power. Jashiro Yukitaki whispered softly. The words were full of disbelief. Zaraki Kenpachi, who was closest to Bai Ye, felt a heat wave coming, and the surrounding ground was being burned crazily, and there were even signs of turning into glass like crystals. Even though he has experienced hundreds of battles, he is still a little unsure of Bai Ye's ability at this time. There is no doubt that if Bai Ye takes action, it will be earth-shattering. As for the pink-haired Kusajishi Yakiru who followed Zaraki Kenpachi not far away, he was also a little scared at this time and looked at Bai Ye in awe. She had heard that Bai Ye was just a young man and very powerful, but she never thought that day and night could be so fishy. Look at the space around him. It's almost falling apart. Okay. Is his species really just a Shinigami? What Shinigami can achieve such effects at such an age? I'm afraid even if the strongest Shinigami Yamamoto Genryusai in 1,000 years comes to come, he won't be able to do this. Aegean. Kusajishi Yakiru had some worry in his eyes, calling Zaraki Kenpachi's name from behind. Before, she and Zaraki Kenpachi traveled through Rukongai and depended on each other. Zaraki Kenpachi was like a brother or father to her. She didn't want Zaraki Kenpachi to die in vain just because of a sparring match. But, Zaraki Kenpachi did not answer, but just made a dodge move. He wanted to dodge Bai Ye's attack at the moment he took action, and then win with one blow. Although his fighting style is brutal, he is not stupid. It's not his style to be beaten passively. Next moment. Under the spotlight, Bai Ye looked lazy and waved his fist forward. Click, click. The sound of space shattering was endless. With Bai Ye's movements, everyone's vision changed, and the light in the air became distorted and skewed, as if all the space in this area was trembling crazily. Between heaven and earth, the temperature suddenly increased. It reached an extremely high level. Especially in the area near Bai Ye, the surrounding soil was burned into scarlet viscous magma and flowed wantonly around. The destructive power spread crazily towards the surroundings. Oops. Protect civilians. In the distance, even though they are far apart, this scorching power is pouring crazily around like the sky, even affecting the civilians who come to watch the battle, as well as some Gote 13 members who are not strong enough. If they were allowed to come into direct contact with the aftermath, a large number of ordinary Shinigami might be seriously injured or even killed. The pupils of Kyoraku Shunsui, Unohana Retsu, Shiba Isen and others shrank slightly, and they released Reiatsu one after another to resist this hot wave. The oncoming powerful force, even the aftermath, made them a little overwhelmed. If it weren't for the many captain-level strong men present, Soul Society might have faced the maximum casualties, day to day. Bai Ye's power exceeded their psychological expectations. Most civilians will probably die under this wave. Kyoraku Shunsui gritted his teeth. What kind of move is he? This destructive power is definitely comparable to the captain's 4.6 long. Even the captain's Bankai sword, or the sword cremation performed by himself, are probably nothing more than this. Bai Ye's offensive. It has exceeded the limit that second-class spiritual power can achieve. You have definitely touched the edge of first-class spiritual power. Standing at the top of this world. Everyone was extremely horrified. First-class Ling Wei's offensive. Definitely a strategic level. If it were released towards the Jingling Court, it would probably destroy half of the Jingling Court and cause countless casualties. This is an attack that can affect the entire world and is comparable to a natural disaster. In the past, only Hawako Mundo's, OXU, Gote 13 Captain Yamamoto Genryusai, and the members of the first team can control such a powerful offensive. And today, there is one more person involved in this, strategic level, attack. Named Bai Ye, .088. He only takes a slight attack, which is the limit of Zaraki Kenpachi. Advertise here. Even, Aizen's pupils shrank slightly, and he became more determined to study Kyoka Suigetsu Bankai. Although, his Kyoka Suigetsu can control everything. But, under such a large-scale indiscriminate offensive, even Kyoka Suigetsu would not have much effect. After all, as long as Bai Ye smashed everything in front of him with the punch just now, he could cause indiscriminate damage. Even if he was hiding aside, he would inevitably be affected by his attack on Naha. And, even though Aizen is confident in his Reiatsu, but with the immune control ability that Bai Ye has shown before, he doubts whether Kyoka Suigetsu in Shikai form can affect Bai Ye. Just as he was thinking. Next moment, boom. It was like a dull thunder sounded between the heaven and the earth, and everyone felt that the temperature around them increased sharply. They were already sweating profusely, and their clothes were even more wet with sweat. And the original place where Bai Ye is. Suddenly, a dazzling light shone brightly. Under everyone's gaze, it was like a rising sun. It was huge, and a wave of energy with a scorching breath swept towards the front crazily. Mountains and rivers overturn and the earth sinks. Just the blink of an eye. The landscape in front of us has been greatly changed. Kyoraku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukataki, Unohana Retsu and others looked forward in horror. I saw a semicircular destructive area with Bai Ye's location as the center. The land was blown away, exposing the hard rock layer. The huge energy emitted the ultimate high temperature, destroying what little was left. The ground is all baked like glass. In the ravine, there are also streams of extremely scarlet magma that emit terrifying heat. And at the moment Bai Ye took action. Seireitei, Kidō Headquarters, Central 46. Everyone felt the fluctuation like a natural disaster, and walked out of the room one after another, looking in the direction of Rukongai. That place. Isn't it the Y Pavilion where Bai Ye is? It is rumored that Zaraki Kenpachi went to him for discussion. This will not be caused by day and night. In the Jingling Court, everyone was talking a lot, and their eyes were full of doubts, wonders, and disbelief. To know. They all know Zaraki Kenpachi's abilities. Although he is powerful, he does not have such terrifying moves. If this attack hits the Serenity Court, the consequences are simply unimaginable. I am afraid. Half of the Jingling Court will be destroyed by the power of this punch. This is a strategic level force. Central 46. Various sages, the judge whispered softly, his eyes full of desire. This is the power that Central 46 has always wanted to master. Other locations, Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, Daikido, the Tsunayashiro family. Everyone has complicated moods. My heart was filled with wonder at this power. Rukongai. In front of Y Pavilion. Ah, this. Everyone's eyes widened, looking straight at the scene in front of them, and their mouths opened wide, as if they could fit an egg in. Everything in front of me, the ravine-ridden land, the flowing magma, and the energy fluctuations that stretch for unknown miles and have rushed out of the end of the line of sight. All of this gave everyone the illusion of facing a natural disaster. Even some Rukongai civilians fainted directly. Under this high temperature, their bodies and minds had already reached their limits. The members of Gote 13 also stood there in a daze, speechless as they looked at everything in front of them. Original. They thought that their captain was the limit of his combat power, but today, Bai Ye let them know what it means to sit in a well and watch the sky. Is this really a power that Shinigami can unleash? This is a common question on everyone's mind. Original. Everyone felt that the battle between Bai Ye and Zaraki Kenpachi must be a battle between dragon and tiger. But, only now did they realize how ridiculous their ideas were. Bai Ye only took a slight shot. This is already the limit of Zaraki Kenpachi. Is this the fluctuation caused by Bai Ye? The area where captains gather. Kyoraku Shunsui also murmured in disbelief. If Bai Ye could keep releasing this kind of power, he might be able to compete with Bankai's old man Yamamoto. By the way, where's Zaraki Kenpachi? Are you still alive? Someone suddenly remembered the other protagonist in this incident, Zaraki Kenpachi. Under the power of this punch, I am afraid that the captain-level experts will be instantly destroyed into flying ashes. Think of this. Everyone shook their heads, their hearts filled with sighs for Zaraki Kenpachi. You are so good, why are you provoking Bai Ye? Kusajishi Yakiru rushed out directly, and Hiroko Shinji, Shiba Ishin and other captains also rushed towards the end of their sight, where Bai Ye's fist power reached the limit. On the road, there are spreading ravines and magma everywhere. If it weren't for the location of Y Pavilion where Bai Ye is located, there are no blocking buildings or civilians living in front of it. Bai Ye could have caused tens of thousands or even tens of thousands of casualties with just that punch. Time flies. A full half-hour later, Hiroko Shinji, Shiba Yixin came back with a dark man on his arm. Judging from his figure, he looked like Zaraki Kenpachi. Although his breath is very weak, he still has breathing and weak spiritual power. Obviously, he is still alive. However, if he continues not to be treated, I am afraid that even if his vitality is extremely strong, he will die here. Quick, go to treatment. The players from the fourth team took over Zaraki Kenpachi one after another. At this time, everyone saw the miserable injuries on Zaraki Kenpachi's body and took a breath of air in their hearts. Kenpachi now. The whole body was burned to a crisp, and there was a faint smell of meat. There were dense scars all over the body, which made those who heard it sad and those who heard it shed tears. Especially on his chest, all the bones were broken, and the entire chest was torn apart by the arrogant energy. You could even see his slightly beating heart. Hiss. Everyone's scalps were numb. An average strong person, even a captain-level person, would probably die long ago if he were injured so seriously, but Zaraki Kenpachi is still alive. Fortunately, Zaraki Kenpachi did not withstand all the attacks and avoided the front with the highest attack power. Otherwise, no matter how strong his body was, he would have been shattered in an instant. Hiroko Shinji's words were a bit sad. He had just gone to find Zaraki Kenpachi, and even with the captain-level Shunpo, he had gone for 10 minutes. The distance of Yuya's attack was probably enough to span most of the Seireitei. Under this offensive, all beings are equal. Even the captain of the second-class Lingwei would be instantly wiped out if he received this blow. I am afraid that only Mr. Yamamoto can resist this blow head-on. 0.089. Forbidden Technique. Advertise here. Aside, the members of the 4th Division who were treating Zaraki Kenpachi were all sweating profusely and trying their best to keep him alive. Not long after, underneath the healing light of many Kaido, Zaraki Kenpachi is finally out of danger, but it may take a long time to recover completely. Pity. Although his life can be saved, Zaraki Kenpachi will have a scar on his body. The members of the 4th Division sighed in tone. As long as I can save my life. Hieraku Shunsui looked at the extremely miserable Zaraki Kenpachi, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. If Zaraki Kenpachi died here, then Bai Ye would have killed 2 generations of Kenpachi in succession. I am afraid, even Mr. Yamamoto has a huge headache. At this time, Zaraki Kenpachi was paralyzed on the ground. Although he could not lift up any strength, his eyes were still not dim, but instead burned with a raging fighting spirit. Just today, he has found a purpose that makes him happy. Although no part of his body was uninjured, Bai Ye's appearance was equivalent to giving him a guiding light in his confused life. And aside, Kusajishi Yakiru looked at Zaraki Kenpachi's eyes, sighed softly, and at the same time felt relieved. It seems, the temporary defeat did not make Zaraki Kenpachi lose his fighting spirit. Instead, he regarded Bai Ye as his goal to surpass. Subsequently, she looked at Bai Ye not far away, looking at his handsome side face and his still calm expression after the disaster-like blow. Even she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. All the time. She thought Zaraki Kenpachi was invincible and no strong man could stop him. However, today Bai Ye used his strength to let everyone know that even a GN was no match for this young genius. Now Bai Ye, the title of genius, is no longer worthy of him. Among the captains, Shiba Ishin sighed with a sigh. With a strategic level attack, he alone can shake the safety of the entire Soul Society. Now, if Bai Ye wants to, he can even directly create a big family in Soul Society, and even compete with the 4 nobles. Another person with this ability is Yamamoto Genryusai. Pity. Captain Yamamoto never married a wife in his life, and the idea of family plus 4 clans is naturally a fantasy. At this time, in front of Y Pavilion, Bai Ye turned around and left, still holding the wine gourd in his hand, taking a sip from time to time. Just his own one-punch man gathers the power of his whole body and amplifies it 10 times, and is able to exude such terrifying power. Even the destructive power of the old man Yamamoto and Bankai's sword in the original work is only this. If it can be used without interruption. Bai Ye narrowed his eyes slightly and then shook his head. Pity. The punch just now consumed nearly half of his body's strength, so he could only use it as a trump card. Even if he tried his best, he could only punch 2 punches at most. And Zaraki Kenpachi. Bai Ye didn't care. This was one of the 5 special powers in the original work. Even if he claimed his own strength, his body's foundation was still there. He couldn't die under such an offensive unless he punched again. However, Bai Ye knew that Zaraki Kenpachi was just obsessed with fighting and was not a bad person. He came here just to compete with him and there was no need to kill him. But, the punch just now left an indelible scar on Zaraki Kenpachi's chest, which was exactly the same as the scar on Unohana Retsu's body. Hundreds of years ago, Zaraki Kenpachi fought with Sister Wa and left a knife on Sister Wa. Now, it makes sense for me to leave a mark on his body. Not long after, Bai Ye walked into Y Pavilion, and he was met by Feijun and Mama Song, and the movie focused on Bai Ye. They watched Bai Ye's battle and truly experienced the feeling of natural disaster destroying the world. If Master Bai Ye hadn't deliberately avoided Y Pavilion with his pressure, I'm afraid the entire Y Pavilion would have turned into powder under that blow. Now, in the hearts of these drinkers and the staff of Y Pavilion, Bai Ye's status is almost like a god, as if as long as he is here, Y Pavilion will not be in any danger. Master Bai Ye, the singing, dancing and wine are ready upstairs. You can go up and have a rest at any time. Mama Song's tone was full of flattery and awe. At the same time, there was a feeling of joy in my heart. With such a boss, she feels proud every time she goes out, and Y Pavilion's treatment is among the best in the entire Soul Society. She is simply lucky to be able to work in Y Pavilion. Feijun also obediently took Bai Ye's wine gourd and filled it with wine again. Not long after, Bai Ye came to his own boss box. The box covered an extremely large area and occupied the entire first floor of Y Pavilion. The decoration inside is even more luxurious. Bai Ye sat lazily on the sofa. Feijun beside him gently massaged his shoulders. After the spiritual power passed through Feijun's body, it returned to Bai Ye's body again. Bai Ye's Reiatsu is climbing bit by bit. Although Feijen Tai Tai's progress is very slow, he is improving every moment. Bai Ye took a sip of wine casually. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket. Congratulations to host for drinking after defeating Zaraki Kenpachi. Host's white hits ability has been broken through. You have obtained Forbidden Technique. Instant coax. Close black lens bracket. Forbidden Technique. Instant coax. Bai Ye looked at the introduction about instant coax on the system panel and nodded lightly. In the original work, Shunku was created by Yoruichi, and only Shihouin Yoruichi and later the captain of the 2nd Division, Sui Feng, could exert the power of Shunku. You can combine white hits, Shunpo, Kidō and many other abilities to produce extremely powerful effects. It can also be said that Dino's Shunhu is one of the dogs with the strongest melee combat ability in the original work. Good. Bai Ye nodded with satisfaction. And, my Shunkaku is a little different from Yoruichi and Sui Feng's. After all, he has One Punch Man in white hits, Shunpo has Extreme Taishu Flash Goddess, Kidō has Hado fully unlocked, and can cast without chanting and double chant. My accumulation in white hits, Shunpo, and Kidō is far better than that of Sui Feng and Yoruichi, and I can perfectly integrate the forbidden technique I have mastered into Schwanko. In this way, he can directly use his body to perform extremely powerful Hado such as 5 Swirling Dragons of Destruction, 1 Sword Creation, and Black Coffin, during battle, and he can appear and disappear. It can also charge up power in the middle. One Punch Man. 0.013902223 Filu 122,540,430. Equivalent to a Shuunpo. Perfectly connects the 3 abilities of white hits, Shunpo, and Kidō, and can cooperate with each other to exert more powerful power. 090. Then play music, then dance. Advertise here. Master Bai Ye, you look very happy. On the side, Feijun looked at Bai Ye who was in a good mood, with a smile on his lips. Subsequently, she looked at the dancers below and waved gently, keep playing music, keep dancing. Y Pavilion. The sound of silk and bamboo can be heard. Bai Ye fell into a gentle country and couldn't hear what was going on outside the window. At the same time, the impact of the fight between Bai Ye and Zaraki Kenpachi, as well as the details of the fight between the two, were like a storm, spreading to the entire Soul Society in a short period of time. Rukongai, Seireitei. You can hear the name, Bai Ye, everywhere. Bai Ye has unparalleled combat power, defeated Zaraki Kenpachi, and was able to exert a strategic offensive comparable to a first-class spiritual power. All kinds of rumors are rampant, causing the entire Soul Society to explode. It seems that the devastating wave that came from Rukongai a while ago was caused by Bai Ye. I thought Soul Society had suffered some natural disaster, as if it was going to be destroyed in the next second. I really couldn't imagine that such power came from just one person. Seireitei. Bai Ye's name is everywhere in the streets, alleys and wine shops. Now Bai Ye has become the center of public opinion and the focus of everyone's discussion. It's terrible, it's really terrible. Bai Ye's performance is already comparable to the strategic level. Before, I thought Zaraki Kenpachi could be on par with him, but now it's ridiculous to think about it. Presumably, except for Captain Yamamoto or Team Zero, no one can make Bai Ye bow his head. Everyone was sighing and sighing in their hearts. After all, some time ago, they also stayed at the incident where Bai Ye beheaded Byakuya Kuchiki. However, in just a short period of time, Bai Ye actually did so many earth-shattering things, killing Kenpachi, Kuchiki Shanghai, Kuchiki Silver Bell, Zael Aporo. And now, he has grown from the young genius he was back then to a peerless powerhouse capable of subverting the entire Soul Society. Strategic level, also known as a strong man who can completely threaten the entire Jingling Court. Bai Ye's previous move in Rukongai, if used against the Jingling Court, would probably destroy half of the Jingling Court in an instant. Everyone was talking, and their words were full of awe for the strong. The only existing strategic class members are Captain Yamamoto and members of the Zero Division. As for there was another person hundreds of years ago, Bankai was able to integrate with the entire Seireitei Mole City Kenpachi, which can also be called a strategic class. Unfortunately, he later committed an unforgivable mistake and was imprisoned in the eternal hell. The sentence lasted for 10,000 years. He didn't know whether he would come out alive in this life. Now, Bai Ye's reputation in Soul Society has risen again, and has even reached the point of being second only to Captain Yamamoto. Even the heads of the four noble families are shorter than Bai Ye in the hearts of everyone. After all, now Bai Ye, if he wants to, can marry a wife and have children, and build a brand new noble family in the Seireitei. As long as Bai Ye can stay alive, it might be possible to replace the four nobles in the future. It's just that although Bai Ye has a good relationship with Yoruichi and his classmates at Spiritual Arts Academy, there are no rumors about his relationship with anyone. If he, like Captain Yamamoto, never marries a wife in his life, wouldn't it be a waste of his strength? Suddenly, in Seireitei, some small and medium-sized nobles are thinking about whether they have a daughter of the right age at home. If possible, if they can marry Bai Ye, the whole family will ascend to heaven. At this time, an extremely wide island in the middle of the lake, surrounded by tight security. There are Kidō people, CDFH, and Gote 13 people stationed there. This is Central 46, the highest authority in the entire Soul Society. Only, now, there was silence in the huge conference hall. The 46 sages and judges were all looking at a screen in the middle, which contained all the information about the fight between Bai Ye and Zaraki Kenpachi. Especially when they saw Bai Ye's powerful attack, with a punch that seemed to shatter the entire sky, exuding an offensive comparable to the power of a first-class spirit, their eyes widened and their hearts were filled with disbelief. In the conference room, there were gasps of air from time to time. Bai Ye, he is so terrifying. Such a punch can probably break half of the Jingling Court. Damn it, such a strong man was actually missed by us. All the sages and judges couldn't help but sigh. After all, they had wanted to control Bai Ye under Central 46 before, but they had not implemented it for the time being because they had too many considerations at the time. But, how long has it been since then? Bai Ye turned into someone they didn't recognize at all, so powerful that it made them feel strange. Originally, during this time, they also paid attention to Zaraki Kenpachi, and they were still proud of the fact that such a hidden strongman joined Gote 13 and became a contemporary swordsman in their thug market. But, Bai Ye's punch shattered all the pride in their hearts. With Bai Ye's outstanding performance in front of them, their interest in Zaraki Kenpachi has also weakened. Why? Without the effectiveness of such strategic experts, our control over Soul Society in Room 46 would be greatly reduced. A judge sighed lightly. Now, Bai Ye's existence is not only a high-end combat power, but also a strategic power. If he punches Jinglingting a few times, he can directly destroy the entire Jinglingting. What's more, Bai Ye's character is freewheeling and he can do whatever he wants without any scruples. Even the head of the Kuchiki family, Kuchiki Yinling, kills him whenever he says. As long as such a person exists in Seireitei, he will be a huge source of instability. As for Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, since the last time he talked and fought with Bai Ye, and was blocked by Bai Ye, his attitude towards the 46th chamber has also undergone subtle changes. Original. He is just a loyal dog in Room 46. Although he is not very useful, he can still be used. But, now Yamamoto has begun to obey and disobey some of the instructions of Room 46, and even doesn't care at all. He has started to do whatever he wants like Bai Ye. In the past, he would grit his teeth and execute some orders that gave him a headache, but now he would directly refuse. This made the men at Central 46 feel that Yamamoto had learned bad things from Bai Ye. 091. I am no longer the captain. Advertise here. Now, the most important thing is that we must have our own strategic level combat capabilities. Above, one of the inquisitors spoke in a low tone. Currently, the only strategic level combat forces that exist in Soul Society are Yamamoto, Team Zero, and Bai Ye. If Bai Ye, a free-spirited person, suddenly wants to take action against Central 46, I'm afraid no one can resist him. Not to mention, without the support of strong players at this level, Central 46's dominance and prestige will be affected to a certain extent. Actually, except for a few of them, have you forgotten the strong men in Wujianzhong? Someone suddenly said. Suddenly, everyone was enlightened. Infinite Hell, Soul Society's most rigorous and heavily guarded prison. As long as you are locked inside, no matter how powerful you are, even a strong person on the level of Yamamoto Genryusai, there is absolutely no possibility of escaping. And, although there are people in Wujian who have committed serious crimes and mistakes, some of them are not unforgivable. Now, Mole City Kenpachi is in the Infinite Hell, serving hundreds of years in prison, and he also had the intention to be released from prison some time ago. It is not impossible to let him out of prison in exchange for him playing for Central 46. If we can recruit Mole City Kenpachi. Someone touched their chin. Mole City Kenpachi, the 8th generation Kenpachi, is also the 3rd most powerful Kenpachi among all previous Kenpachi. The 7th Kenpachi Kashiashiki Kenpachi was originally so powerful that he was even invited by the Zero Division. As long as he nodded, he could join the Zero Division, receive the blessing of the Soul King, and become immortal from now on. But, such a strong man was directly killed by Mole City Kenpachi. This is equivalent to Mole City Kenpachi killing a member of the Quasi-Zero team. According to legend, Mole City Kenpachi's Zanpakutō Yulu Takuli can merge with the entire Seireitei, and even the entire world, and is the only Zanpakutō in Soul Society who can maintain the normalized Bankai. It can be said, in some aspects, Mole City Kenpachi is even stronger than Mr. Yamamoto. After all, Mr. Yamamoto's abilities are all direct and direct, while Mole City Kenpachi can rely on Zanpakutō to control the spirit children in the entire Serenity Garden, and can even create pen. It can be said that as long as he is in the Quiet Spirit Garden, although Mole City Kenpachi is a little inferior in spiritual power, his overall combat power is not inferior to Captain Yamamoto at all. Think of this. The sages and judges of Central 46 all touched their chins and nodded at the same time. If it were Mole City Kenpachi, it might really be able to alleviate the current situation. Because of the inaction of the 46th chamber in response to Bai Ye's action of killing Kuchiki Yinling, as well as many other reasons, a large number of nobles and civilians have been dissatisfied. They urgently need a strong man to consolidate their rule. With an order, the hell that was originally like a coffin and had not seen the light of day all year round finally had a glimmer of light. There is decay, and the smell of dust everywhere. There was a man inside wearing aristocratic clothing, with narrow eyes, pale skin, and 2 vertical sideburns hanging down his neck. He looked very thin and stretched out his hands to cover the sunlight, with an interesting smile on his face. Even though I'm in hell. But his Bankai has long been integrated with the entire Jingling Ting. It can be said that everything he sees is his eyes and ears. All the spirits in the Jingling Court are under his control. Although isolated from the world, everything that happened in the Quiet Spirit Court in the past few hundred years could not be hidden from his perception. Bai Ye, he is an interesting person. However, this time, no one can stop my plan. Room 46 wants to take advantage of him. And why doesn't he want to use Room 46? At the same time, Gote 13, the 11th Division team building. At this time, many captains gathered to visit. The external injuries have almost recovered, but the scar on the chest cannot be removed. You only need to recuperate for a period of time before you can return to normal. A gentle-looking woman with braids put away the treatment tools and released Kaido, stood up gently, and looked at Zaraki Kenpachi lying on the tatami in front of her, and Kusajishi Yakiru beside her. After all, Zaraki Kenpachi is the captain. After he came back, Unohana Retsu, as the captain of the 4th team, naturally had to come over for a routine inspection. *0. However, although Zaraki Kenpachi's injuries seemed serious, most of them were superficial injuries, and Shinigami's most basic knots and sleep were not damaged. It seems, Bai Ye didn't kill him, but the scar on Zaraki Kenpachi's chest couldn't be removed no matter what method he used. It was like a brand, fiercely imprinted on his body. Judging from its location, it was exactly the same as the place where he was cut by Zaraki Kenpachi before. As this Bai Ye venting his anger on me? Unohana Retsu was a little surprised, but then she shook her head. Although Bai Ye has good strength and knows a lot of information, hundreds of years have passed since he fought against Zaraki Kenpachi, and Bai Ye was not born yet at that time. As for his fight with Zaraki Kenpachi, no one except himself, Captain Yamamoto, Zaraki Kenpachi and a few other people knew about it, and it was naturally impossible for Bai Ye to know about it. Unohana Retsu couldn't think of a reason, so he could only treat it as a coincidence. Ajian, are you okay? Kusajishi Yakiru looked at Zaraki Kenpachi with worried eyes. Around him, captains such as Kyoraku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukitaki, Shiba Ishin also looked at Zaraki Kenpachi. After all, they would be colleagues from now on, so it was necessary to come and visit. It's okay, I've decided that I won't be the captain anymore. Zaraki Kenpachi's words were so shocking that everyone present rubbed their ears, as if they heard wrongly. Everyone looked confused. I wonder what Zaraki Kenpachi is crazy about. The name of Kenpachi is an honor that can only be obtained by the strongest swordsman. And if I lost to Bai Ye, how could I be called the strongest swordsman? I decided that from now on I would hold the title of vice captain. Only after someone else defeats me can I be the captain of the 11th division. Or, after I defeat Bai Ye in the future, I can then serve as the contemporary Kenpachi. Zaraki Kenpachi's voice was still a little weak, but everyone heard it full of determination. Although he is not the captain, his salary will be reduced, but Zaraki Kenpachi is not a person who cares about these external things. After all, even the salary of the deputy captain is enough to allow him and Kusajishi Yakiru to live comfortably in the Seireitei. 092. Rukia enrollment. Advertise here. I see. At this moment, an old man who looked like he was dying and leaning on a cane came over, looked at Zaraki Kenpachi and nodded slightly, admitting his idea. Captain Yamamoto. Everyone present looked at the old man respectfully. Yamamoto narrowed his eyes slightly. Even though he was in the first team building, he could clearly sense the power of Bai Ye's punch. It was an absolute strategic power. The memory of fighting Bai Ye emerged in his mind. Not long ago. In his mind, Bai Ye is just a young genius with all kinds of incredible abilities. His offensive is extremely sharp and can even have some impact on his own Ryujin Jaka. However, at that time, Yamamoto did not think that Bai Ye could shake the order of Jinglingting. But now, Bai Ye has grown to a point that even he can't see through, and has grown into a strong man at the pinnacle of Seireitei. 530. At the same time, he looked at the tragic situation on Zaraki Kenpachi and sighed in his heart. Bai Ye almost became the first person in the history of Jinglingting to kill 2 generations of Kenpachi. It would be perfect if Bai Ye served as Kenpachi, but it's a pity that I can't ask for it. Time flies. Since the shocking battle between Bai Ye and Zaraki Kenpachi, Soul Society has also entered a rare period of peace. Only, Rukongai still hears news of missing Shinigami from time to time, but most of them are Shinigami with average potential or Shinigami with potential but not yet grown up. Even though Central 46 and Gote 13 went to check from time to time, except for killing some Manos Grande with average strength, there was no other gain. As for the mastermind behind Shinigami's disappearance, there is no progress. 30 years later, Spiritual Arts Academy, Matsumoto Rangaku, Hisagi Shuhei, Ichimaru Jin, Surugaki Hiyori, Yadomaru Lisa and others who were at the same time as Bai Ye also graduated from Spiritual Arts Academy and joined Gote 13. Although the strongest player in the same period was Bai Ye, they overshadowed their brilliance and became the most popular talent of that period. However, these people are, after all, the most outstanding students in their class besides Bai Ye. After joining Gote 13, they all held official positions within a short period of time, and some of them even became vice captain level figures. Matsumoto Rangaku, deputy captain of the 10th division. Ichimaru Jin, 3 seats in the 5th division. Surugaki Hiyori, deputy captain of division 12. Yadomaru Lisa, deputy captain of division 8. Hisagi Shuhei, squadron Gonin. And at this moment, 30 years later, Spiritual Arts Academy has also welcomed a new batch of young students. Rukia, I'm assigned to a class. A tall, thin man with red hair and somewhat sinister eyes looked at a petite girl wearing a red and white school uniform, who looked very similar to Feijun, with an expression full of excitement. Spiritual Arts Academy. Divided into Class 1 and Class 2. Only students who excel in the entrance test can be assigned to a class and enjoy a better education. Okay, I got it. Rukia had a dark look on her face. When she enrolled, she was only assigned to Class 2 due to lack of Reiatsu. Don't be unhappy. When the classes are reorganized in the second half of the year, as long as you practice hard, you can join the first class. Another girl with a baby face and a delicate look patted Rukia on the shoulder and whispered softly, of comfort. Aside, there is also a young man with yellow hair and thin cheeks. Hinamori Momo, Rukia, Hira Iziru, Abarai Renji. When the 4 of them entered school, they got to know each other and became friends because they were assigned together for the test. However, Renji, even if you are assigned to a class, you cannot take it lightly. After all, this school has produced too many monsters. It's just a class. It can only guarantee that after graduation, you can join Kidō or Gote 13 as an ordinary team member. If you want to be a chief officer or even a higher position, more efforts are needed. Quote. Hira Iziru patted Abarai Renji on the shoulder with a somewhat sad tone. The 4 of them all looked towards the famous alumni of the school not far away. There were thunderous names on them. Each one of them was a shocking powerhouse, which was also proof of the teaching strength of Spiritual Arts Academy. Above, Matsumoto Rangaku, Yadomaru Lisa, Ichimaru Jin and other alumni who became officials after graduation are all recorded. The small characters next to them record their positions and general experience. As for the top, the names are even more shocking. Current captains such as Kyoraku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukataki, etc. are impressive. And in front of everyone, there is a portrait of a handsome young man holding a wine gourd and looking lazy, with only the name, Bai Ye, next to it. As for the position, my experience is blank. Rukia, Hinamori Momo and others, looking at these names, their eyes are full of longing. If one day their names can be recorded, it means that they have become the so-called big shots of Soul Society. However, the number 1 ranking is indeed Bai Ye. Several people looked at Bai Ye's name above the rankings and murmured softly. After all, although they have just joined the Spiritual Arts Academy. However, when Bai Ye became famous, although they were still children in Rukongai, they had heard rumors about Bai Ye. At a young age, he became one of the 3 special freshmen at that time, and killed the noble Byakuya Kuchiki who was also a special freshman. But, it was the smallest thing he had ever done. At the back, whether it was killing Kuchiki Silver Bell, Haweko Mundo Admiral, or defeating Zaraki Kenpachi, showing strategic level combat power, each of them was an achievement that they could never match in their lifetime. Bai Ye is the most famous person from Rukongai. If I can be as powerful as him in the future and achieve the same achievements as him. There was a hint of longing in Abarai Renji's eyes. Bai Ye, in Rukongai, has become a legend. *1.7 Wake up, maybe Bai Ye is younger than you. At your age, he is almost invincible. Besides, Rukia poured cold water on Renji. She and Abarai Renji have been wandering in Rukongai for decades, but Bai Ye joined the Spiritual Arts Academy when she was still a teenager at most. Now, 30 years have passed. Bai Ye is only 50 years old. In the Shinigami, which can easily live for thousands of years and be hundreds of years older, Bai Ye can be considered a youngster. Hiss, it's so scary. Thinking of this, several other people took a breath. 30 years ago, Bai Ye was already a strategic level combat force. Now, 30 years later, what level has he reached? If he were allowed to live for a few hundred more years, wouldn't Captain Yamamoto's title of the strongest Shinigami in 1,000 years change hands? 093. I want to be Lord Aizen's dog. Advertise here. But this Bai Ye's character is a bit strange. Hinamori Momo pointed her finger at her chin, thinking of the rumors about Bai Ye in her mind. Never practice. Do whatever you want. Love drinking. And, since he defeated Zaraki Kenpachi 30 years ago, he has never fought in the past few decades. He has always been drinking and having fun at the Flower Night Pavilion in Rukongai. Or come to the jingling court and be a street kid. There is no expert demeanor at all. But, due to his previous outstanding achievements, no one could look down upon him, and naturally no one found trouble with him. As a result, he did not take action for 30 years. No one knows how powerful he is. Ah, are you talking about Bai Ye? He is indeed an interesting person. Just when everyone was discussing, a gentle voice sounded, making people feel as if they were intoxicated by the spring breeze, and the feeling was full of gentleness. Everyone turned to look at 26. I saw a man with brown hair, an elegant and easygoing look, and wearing square glasses slowly walking over. Behind him was a young man with squinting eyes, silver white hair, and a temperament like a lion majesty. Ah, Aizen-sama, Ichimaru-sama, Abarai Renji, Hira Iziru and others quickly saluted respectfully. Aizen Sosuke, the deputy captain of the 5th Division. It is said that he is gentle to others and is also the captain with the best reputation in the Seireitei. Behind him, Ichimaru Jin has the 3rd seat in the 5th Division and is second only to Hirako in the 5th Division. Shinji, Aizen's big shot. According to legend, he was also a former classmate of Day and Night. No need to be polite. Aizen smiled slightly and his attitude was extremely friendly. At the same time, other freshmen and students around them all turned their attention here, and the whole Junling Academy suddenly became noisy. A large number of people surrounded Aizen Sosuke, and all the freshmen looked at him with admiration and awe. Vice Captain. In the Seireitei, he can be regarded as a real big shot. Master Aizen came here in person. Are you going to teach us in person? According to legend, in the past few decades, every time freshmen entered the school, Lord Aizen would come to teach in person. He is really conscientious and well-intentioned. I want to be Lord Aizen's dog. Ah, Aizen-sama is so handsome. He is giving lessons at the vice captain level in person. I really want to hear it. Hiss, Ichimaru Jin is also following behind him. Ichimaru Jin was the genius second only to Bai Ye in that class. He was even called one of the 3 special freshmen, with Bai Ye. Everyone was talking about it. Aizen's appearance instantly lit up the entire Spiritual Arts Academy. The scene suddenly became noisy. Everyone, I will teach you today. Aizen adjusted his glasses and smiled. First, you need to understand what Zanpakutō is, and the Shikai of Zanpakutō. Just like my Kyoka Suigetsu, Zanpakutō, who is a flowing water type, can manipulate water vapor in the air to create changes in light and shadow, causing enemies to kill each other. Around, all the students cheered up and listened carefully to Aizen's lectures, not wanting to miss any detail. Now, let you watch Shikai. This will also go a long way in helping you master the power of Zanpakutō. Aizen spoke softly, with a spring breeze-like smile on his face. Time flies. He also had an idea about the location of the Hogyoku made by Urahara Kazuki. Now is the time to plan ahead for the future. Ah. Master Aizen, he really made me cry to death. The students around were all moved. Shikai. How important it is to a Shinigami, and it is also the foundation for a Shinigami to settle down and live. However, Master Aizen was so gentle and took the initiative to show Shikai to these students. So gentle. Rear. Ichimaru Jin still kept his eyes narrowed, watching Aizen's performance. Crack it into pieces. Kyoka Suigetsu. A few days later. Rukongai, divided into 4 directions. All directions. However, now the crowd in the east is getting thicker and thicker. As long as there is a way to move to the east, Rukongai residents have come to the east and built their own houses. Moreover, the closer the area is to Wai Pavilion, the price of land is also rising. It even requires strong connections to obtain the qualification to live near Wai Pavilion. After all, right here, with the strategic powerhouse in Seoul society, Bai Ye. This is a power area that has surpassed the 2nd level spiritual power and reached the 1st level spiritual power level. Fortunately, I only spent a mere 10,000 yuan to buy a good piece of land here. Some Rukongai residents said proudly. Suddenly, someone followed his gaze and saw that the land he bought for 10,000 rings looked extremely dilapidated. It was only about 2 square meters in size and could just fit a small bed. Are you sure this is a place for people? Someone covered his face and smiled bitterly. However, the man was not dissatisfied at all. Instead, he said happily, it would be good to buy a piece of land next to Wai Pavilion. Now in Rukongai, only the vicinity of Wai Pavilion is safe. In other places, the possibility of Kion appearing is greatly increased, and Shinigami disappears from time to time. It's really scary. Even Gote 13 and Central 46 sent people to investigate several times, but no results were found. Recently, they asked the Captain Muguruma Kensai to investigate. In my opinion, it is useless. 030. The man sighed in tone. Looking at his broken little bed, he nodded with satisfaction. Although it's a bit broken, living near Wai Pavilion Lion feels very safe. To know, in Wai Pavilion, Master Bai Ye lives. Who dares to act wild in front of Master Bai Ye's door? I simply don't want to live. At this time, in the Flower Night Pavilion. The huge box occupies the space of one floor. There are luxurious decorations everywhere, groups of dancing girls stretch their graceful figures, and the sound of silk and bamboo is heard, making people feel relaxed and happy. A young man with a handsome face and broken hair on his forehead was lying lazily on the huge sofa. 30 years of time. It didn't leave the slightest trace on his face. At the same time, a woman wearing a pink sakura flower kimono with pure eyes like the crimson sky looked at Bai Ye, her eyes full of admiration. At this time, she was pouring wine for Bai Ye. She looks like a wife. And Bai Ye, also enjoying Feijun's service. After all, in the past 30 years, I have often been close to Feijun. Isn't it the same thing as a lonely man and a widowed woman? She is not an irresponsible person. Now Feijun is the proprietress of Wai Pavilion, and her status is the highest in Wai Pavilion besides herself. 0.094. To sum up our strength, we are so far away. At the same time, Bai Ye was drinking. On the desk in front of him, there was recent information. Recent. Shinigami disappear frequently in Rukongai, and the number of hollows continues to increase. Gote 13 is also in dire straits. Now, Muguruma Kensai has taken his vice captain Kuna Mashiro to Rukongai. In the original work, the birth of Vizard and the plot of the Aizen Hollow experiment have begun. It is also the first step for Aizen to rebel against Soul Society and show his fangs. But, Bai Ye's mood did not fluctuate at all. Aizen's existence is not a bad thing for Soul Society, and his actions are not like Yhwach's to destroy the world. He just wants to ascend to the throne of heaven and be the king of the new world. But, this matter will involve Yoruichi. Thinking of this, Bai Ye touched his chin. After Hirako Shinji, Muguruma Kensai and others were killed by Aizen Hollow, Urahara Kazuki and Tessai Tsukubishi went to rescue them, but they were defeated by Aizen. Hirako Shinji and others were evaluated by Room 46 as objects that must be eliminated. Later, together with the three Yoruichi, they sent Hirako Shinji and others to the present world, but they were also punished by Room 46. In the next few decades, Yoruichi can only hide in the real world while being pursued by the Soul Society. The Shihouin family will also be greatly affected. If things develop according to the original plot, I may need to help Yi. Bai Ye made up his mind. At this time, open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket. Congratulations to host, for drinking at Wai Pavilion, host Ling Wei has been increased from second class 28% to second class 30%. Close black lens bracket. Spiritual power increases. Bai Ye nodded with satisfaction. In the past few decades, he has not remained at the same level, and his strength has naturally undergone earth-shaking changes. Second class Ling Wei 30%. Kidō fully unlocked. Moreover, I also got a brand new Kidō Forbidden Technique, so close to the sky, yeah. First, now his spiritual power has broken through from the previous third level to the current second level 30%. Reiatsu. It is the basis of all the power of Shinigami. Shinigami's battle is also Reiatsu's battle. The difference in Reiatsu is the difference in original power. If Reiatsu is in a crushing state, even if the opponent has rules-based power, or even a one-hit kill type of power like Sui Feng, it will not be able to cause too much damage to itself. Previously, I only relied on the third-level spiritual power, coupled with the tenfold increase of One Punch Man, to unleash an offensive comparable to the first-level spiritual power. Even Yamamoto Ryujin Jaka's Bankai is no more powerful than this. But now, I have already broken through to the second-class spiritual power. Although it is only 30%, the quality of the second-class spiritual power is much better than that of the third-class spiritual power. 1% of your power is equivalent to a 10% increase in third-level spiritual power. And, I have now unlocked all of Kidō, Hado, Bakudo, Kaido, except for the forbidden technique similar to the Wan Jintai Feng, all the Kidō in the original work can now be freely retracted. In combination with double chanting, no chanting, and instant coax. Although I have only unlocked some Kidō, my overall combat power has been improved too much. Bai Ye nodded with satisfaction and looked at the last forbidden technique. So far away, Shunpo-type forbidden technique, unlike Kyoku Taishu Flash Goddess, allows one to come and go freely within the scope of one's Reiatsu. If Taishu Flash Goddess is his past. So, if you are so far away, let others come over. As long as your ability is activated, you can change the position of anything within the coverage of your Reiatsu and move it to where you want. You can move enemies attacking you elsewhere. You can also move escaping enemies over. Even the Kidō, sword pressure, are various long-range attack methods released by the enemy or directly transferred back. Let the enemies kill each other. And now, as soon as Bai Ye stretched out his hand, the wine in the distance appeared directly in his hand. The pervert ability can only be used by Bai Ye himself, which is rare for ordinary people. Now he can only do some small things like getting wine. Now, Bai Ye looked at his system panel. Open black lens bracket host. Bai Ye. Close black lens bracket. Zanpakutō. Lufeng Weishui unlock Shikai, Lufeng Weishui. Lingwei. Second class 30%. Swordsmanship. Captain level. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket white hits. Captain level Forbidden Technique. One Punch Man. Close black lens bracket. Shunpo. Captain level Forbidden Technique. Extreme Taishu Flash Goddess, so close to the end of the world. Close black lens bracket. Kidō. Hado Bakudo Kaido is fully unlocked. It can be cast without chanting, and the power will not be reduced. Forbidden Technique. Double chanting, sealing the sky Fuao. Special ability. Heart of the Divine Blade. Close black lens bracket. At this time, Feijun looked at Bai Ye, who seemed to be thinking about something, gently rubbed his shoulders, and said softly, Sir Bai Ye, are you worried about the recent affairs of Rukongai? After all, Rukongai is not peaceful now. It can be said that except for the area where Kai Pavilion is located, everyone else is panicked. Even the captain-level experts of Gote 13 came to Rukongai in person to investigate. Maybe, Master Bai Ye is worried about this. But Bai Ye just smiled and patted Feijun's head gently. It's okay, you don't have to worry about this. What does Rukongai have to do with himself? Bai Ye was too lazy to step in and deal with the headaches that old man Yamamoto needed. As long as the other party doesn't provoke me, wouldn't it be nice to drink in White Pavilion and listen to the music? The only thing I have to do in this matter is to take care of Yoruichi. But the timeline is here. Bai Ye narrowed his eyes slightly. It seems that Kurosaki Masaki is about to appear in this world, and the plot about her is about to begin. A pure Quincy. In this world, it is as rare as the giant panda. And Bai Ye knows that in a few decades, after the plot of Aizen ends, the Emperor of the Invisible Empire, Yhwach, will appear. Unlike Aizen, Yhwach really wants to destroy the three realms, and holds the Knights of the Star Cross and some of the Soul King's bodies in his hands. It truly possesses the power to contend with the three realms. Bai Ye's current existence still needs to rely on the three realms. Naturally, it is impossible to sit back and watch Yhwach completely destroy the three realms. Having Kurosaki Masaki in hand in advance is also a precautionary measure. Maybe she can play a big role in dealing with Yhwach in the future. 095. Aizen's Hollow Experiment. Advertise here. Kurosaki Masaki. Quincy, the only daughter of the Kurosaki family, she possesses captain-level strength and is one of the few pure-blooded Quincy in the world. However, after being bitten by a hollow, the hollow's power remained in his body, and he also lost the power of a pure Quincy. In the original work, he was killed by a virtual attack. The real cause of death was that Yhwach activated holiness, which caused the source of power in his body to be drained, and then he died. But her true identity is the mother of the protagonist of the original work, Kurosaki Ichigo. It can be said that without her, Kurosaki Ichigo would not have a voice, and the plot of the Shinigami anime would not be able to advance. Think of this. The corners of Bai Ye's mouth curled up slightly. He didn't know what the consequences would be if he cut off his beard. Certainly, it is also possible that without Kurosaki Masaki, the world will also be born by other people due to various butterfly effects. Subsequently, Bai Ye didn't think much anymore, just lying comfortably in Feijun's arms, enjoying the warm fragrance of nephrite and the wine that touched his lips. At the same time, Rukongai. The remote place was overgrown with weeds, with destroyed buildings everywhere, and there were deep footprints on the ground, as if they had been stepped on by some giant beast. Hateful. If I find out who's behind it. A man with short silver white hair and beautiful muscles gritted his teeth, wearing a 170 Captain Houri, with the number 9 on the back. On the side is a petite little girl with twinkling eyes. Muguruma Kensai, captain of Division 9. Vice Captain Kuna Mashiro was ordered to come to Rukongai to investigate the disappearance of Shinigami, but a whole day has passed and their progress is still very low. Only some traces of false activities were found, not even the shadow of the mastermind behind the scenes. Muguruma Kensai's mentality has undergone some changes. It's getting dark. They still found nothing and could only set up tents for a short rest. However, not far away, a young man with squinting eyes and silver white hair, and another man with dark skin and an eye patch slowly walked towards here. Team 9 Captain Muguruma Kensai is missing, Vice Captain Kuna Mashiro is in the hospital. The members of Division 9 who followed them to Rukongai also don't know whether they are alive or dead. The next day during the day, a piece of news swept through the entire jingling court like a storm, and everyone had a feeling that a storm is coming. Except for Bai Ye killing 2 captains 30 years ago, in the past 30 years, Soul Society has never had a captain CGFD level strongman be injured. But now, Soul Society, another major incident occurred involving the safety of the captain. Now, Gote 13 headquarters, in the conference hall. A dying old man stood at the front, looking at the empty seats of Division 9 below, and narrowed his eyes slightly. Since the disappearance of Rukongai Shinigami was all civilians, Central 46 did not pay attention to it before. Only when civilians disappeared more and more frequently did they send Muguruma Kensai to investigate. I didn't expect that. It seems that the person behind this matter has an extremely strong background or power. Yamamoto sighed lightly. After all, Muguruma Kensai can disappear silently and do so many great things in Rukongai. In addition to having a background like the Four Nobles, only second-class spiritual power or stronger people can do it. But, Bai Ye's place has always been calm, and the mastermind behind the scenes has not come to invade. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni thought of this, and his eyes were a little helpless. Bai Ye had been drinking and having fun at Yhwach, and with his character, he couldn't be the mastermind behind the scenes. It seems that even the mastermind behind the scenes is extremely afraid of Bai Ye. During these 30 years, Yamamoto had secretly and openly wanted Bai Ye to be the captain of a certain team several times, but unfortunately Bai Ye rejected them all. If Bai Ye was in Gote 13, how could the situation be so dire now? This is the current situation. If too many powerful captains are sent, it will be difficult to protect the safety of Jingling Ting. If a captain with lower combat power is sent, it will just be to die. Captain, don't hesitate anymore. Every second you hesitate, Muguruma Kensai becomes more dangerous. Please let me go to support. Hiroko Shinji's tone was a little urgent. After all, he usually has a good relationship with Muguruma Kensai, but now he is naturally worried. On the side, Love Akawa, Odoribashi Rojiro and others also looked at Captain Yamamoto. After Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni thought for a moment, he sent Hiroko Shinji, Love Akawa, Odoribashi Rojiro, Yadomaru Lisa, and Tsurugaki Hiyori, Tadachu, the 5 captains and deputy captains, in front of them. Support. Moreover, there is also the deputy head of the Kidō people, Hachigen. It can be said, this is an extremely powerful fighting force. There are 3 captains and 3 vice-captain levels of combat power. Since Kyoraku Shunsui, Unohana Retsu and other powerful captains want to guard the Serenity Palace, the reinforcements sent out cannot guarantee the quality, but the quantity. Such a force, even a strong person with second-level spiritual power cannot easily defeat it. Time flies. Hiroko Shinji and others came to Rukongai and saw the devastation all over the ground, and they felt very energetic. However, the next moment, there was a fierce roar from the side, and a hollow, covered in white bone armor and exuding captain-level Reiatsu, suddenly rushed out and launched a fierce attack on them. Ah, this is Muguruma Kensai. No, there's Deputy Captain Kuna Mashiro on the side. Hiroko Shinji and others exclaimed, looking at the 2 hollow Shinigami rushing toward them, their pupils shrank violently and their eyes were filled with disbelief. They can't understand. Why did the friend I spent time with day and night turn out to be like this? However, the opponents seemed to have completely lost their mind and only knew how to attack them crazily. Hiroko Shinji and others could only resist in a hurry, and did not use Bankai for fear of hurting Muguruma Kensai. In the field, several Reiatsu crisscrossed the area. After fighting for several hours, the sky was getting late and the surrounding vision was dark. However, at this moment, the scene in the field had changed greatly. Not only Muguruma Kensai and Kuna Mashiro, but all the captains who came to support are now in the state of hollow, with bone masks growing on their faces. Hiroko Shinji staggered and tried to pull off the bone mask on his face, but in vain. Hateful. What is happening? They just wanted to rescue Muguruma Kensai, but as the battle progressed, the weaker vice-captains such as Tsurugaki Hiyori and Yadomaru Lisa fell into hollow without warning, followed closely by Love Akawa, Odoribashi Rojiro, and Hachigen. And now, it's his turn, Hiroko Shinji. .096. The real terror is invisible betrayal. Advertise here. Here. There are 7 figures lying on the ground with bone masks on their faces. The faces of Love Akawa, Muguruma Kensai and others can be vaguely seen. There was only a man with yellow hair and sharp teeth holding a knife, panting, with a painful look on his face, trying his best to resist the changes in his body. Just when Hiroko Shinji felt that he was about to reach a certain limit. Lahaha. Pap. Not far away. Footsteps sounded. The 3 figures gradually emerged, and under the moonlight, the cold and indifferent expressions on their faces could be vaguely seen. Hiroko Shinji's pupils shrank violently, looking straight at the figure standing among the 3 people, her mouth was low, and she squeezed out a few words like gritting her teeth. Aizen. Only. He was already extremely surprised. You must know that he has always been on guard about Aizen. Even today, he did not let Aizen go with him. Instead, he and his acquaintance Love Akawa and others came to rescue Muguruma Kensai. As for Aizen, he was sure, and certain, that he had been in the 5th Division team building all this time and had not taken a step forward. But, what is the situation with the man standing in front of him now? Why? Hiroko Shinji's heart was filled with doubts at this time, and he could only murmur softly. He has long been aware of Aizen's abnormality, but he still has the confidence in his heart to hold Aizen in his hands and monitor him under his nose. But today, the appearance of Aizen directly shattered his pride. How on earth did he hide it from his sight, and how did he go back and forth between Jingling Ting and Rukongai to carry out such inhumane experiments without ever revealing his flaws? Just thinking about it, I think it's impossible. Only. Standing among the three of them, the man who used to wear square glasses and had a gentle face still had a faint smile on his lips. He walked gently past Hiroko Shinji, speaking softly. Captain Hiroko. Visible betrayal is not terrifying, the real terror is invisible betrayal. Subsequently, behind him, the young man with silver white hair and squinting eyes came over and looked up at Aizen. Sir Aizen, how should we deal with these people? Ichimaru Jin. Hiroko Shinji looked at the boy, his heart felt cold. These are my 3 seats. Graduated from the Spiritual Arts Academy, and was one of the 3 special freshmen, geniuses along with Bai Ye. His cultivation potential is terrifying. Although he is not as good as Bai Ye, he has now reached the 3rd level of spiritual power. As long as he masters Bankai, you can even serve as captain directly. Did not expect. Even he colluded with Aizen. On the side, a man wearing an eye patch, curly hair, and dark skin said nothing, but just looking at the respectful look on his face towards Aizen, you knew that he must be following Aizen's lead. Let's get rid of these failed experiments. Aizen glanced at Hiroko Shinji and others with emotionless eyes, and then said calmly. My own Hogyoku is still incomplete after all. Although it can help Kion perform Arrancar, if Shinigami is allowed to gain Kion's power, most of them will become irrational beasts. But, the experiment finally made some progress. Aizen looked at Hiroko Shinji and nodded imperceptibly. If the experimental subject is strong, he can stay awake for a period of time. If we continue to study, it is possible to continue to improve Hogyoku, but there is not much time left. 0. Please give me flowers. Aizen looked up, looking at Y Pavilion not far away, and even more distant places. Subsequently, he looked at the 2 men behind him again. Ichimaru Jin, after graduating from the Spiritual Arts Academy, surrendered to himself and became his subordinate. However, Aizen could feel the deep murderous intention hidden under Ichimaru Jin's docile appearance. But, he didn't care, and at the same time he was curious, how would Ichimaru Jin kill him? 0.0. You know, Ichimaru Jin was Bai Ye's classmate. I don't know how different Ichimaru Jin will be compared to Bai Ye, who is already famous in Soul Society. Compared to Ichimaru Jin, Aizen trusts Tsusen Kanami more. After all, during the relationship, he discovered Tsusen Kanami's deep hatred for the nobility and his desire to maintain justice in his heart. The goals of the 2 are very similar, which is the main reason why Tsusen Kanami can become his subordinate. 0.013903204 Philu 202,540,460. Hear Aizen's words. There was a trace of despair in Hiroko Shinji's eyes. This place was in a remote location, otherwise he could still ask for help from Kayi Pavilion. It could be said that if he and others died here, no one would notice them at all. Other companions are already unconscious or have lost consciousness. He is also controlled by the violence in his body that wants to tear everything apart all the time, and the combat power he is exerting now is completely useless. Ichimaru Jin pulled out the Zanpakutō, and the cold blade made people feel cold from the bottom of their hearts under the reflection of the moonlight. But, right now, stop. A voice sounded. Then, 2 figures appeared in the field. 0.097. Aizen splitting void. The plot begins. Advertise here. Everyone turned to look. I saw a young man with yellow hair and an unkempt beard. Next to him was a man with dark skin and an unusually thick black beard who looked quite strong. Captain of Division 12, Urahara Kazuki. The big Kidō is long, and the grip requires iron. Now, they looked at the people in the field whose faces were covered with bone masks, their brows furrowed, and Urahara Kazuki's pupils shrank slightly. Although, he had previously investigated Shu who appeared in Soul Society for no reason, and he already had some guesses in his mind, but the matter before him still shocked him extremely. Shinigami possesses the power of Hollow. Isn't this 957 similar in power to the Hogyoku I experimented with? And the mastermind behind the scenes. He looked at Aizen, his eyes extremely solemn. Aizen, how on earth did he hide this from the entire Soul Society and commit such a major crime in Rukongai? Not far away. Sir, do you want to? Tsusen Kanami looked at Aizen and made a gesture of raising and lowering the knife. Only. Aizen shook his head slightly. If the elder Kidō and Urahara Kazuki fight with all their strength, they will definitely alarm everyone in the Jingalingting. What's more, Rukongai also has Bai Ye. If he is lured here, he will become the King of Thorns. Let's go. Aizen smiled indifferently. Even when facing Urahara Kazuki, Tessai Tsukubishi didn't care at all in his eyes and turned around to leave with Ichimaru Jin and Tsusen Kanami. After leaving, naturally someone stepped in to deal with these Arrancars. Want to leave? Tessai Tsukubishi snorted coldly, and Reiatsu surged from his body. Judging from its power, it suddenly reached the 2nd level of spiritual power. He murmured complex chants in his mouth, and after a while, he gently raised his arm, and the veins on it squirmed, and the vast Reiatsu spread crazily around him. Hado number 88, the flying dragon strikes the thief and the sky-shattering thunder cannon. Huge spiritual beams spurted out crazily, the earth sank, the surrounding trees were cut in half, and the air in the entire space was strongly squeezed, emitting a harsh howling sound. Hado over 80. Every blow has the power to easily destroy a village or town. Or flatten a mountain peak. And it was launched by the Kidō master and the great Kidō leader himself, and the power was extremely shocking. Only, pap, click, Aizen walked quietly and noticed the fluctuation of spiritual power behind him. His face was calm and he just adjusted his glasses slightly and said, Bakudo number 81, Sora. The next moment, boom. Behind him, the earth, trees, houses, and everything in sight were easily burned. A violent explosion occurred in the entire area, and huge air waves surged wildly, uprooting all the trees and weeds. Splitting void. It can form a barrier to isolate all Hado attacks below 80. As the user's Reiatsu and proficiency increase, the limit of splitting void's defense will also increase. 88 Hado. There was no damage to Aizen at all. His figure gradually entered the night, and then disappeared. Distance. Urahara Kazuki, Tessai Tsukubishi looked at the scorched earth in front of him, his pupils contracted slightly. The 88 Hado released by the Great Kidō was actually blocked by Aizen's 81 Bakudo without chanting. Even the barrier formed by the splitting void seemed to have some remaining power. Singless cast. Urahara Kazuki murmured softly, looking at Aizen's back with dignity. Casting without chanting requires extremely high proficiency, and the power will be reduced by half, or even more. And Aizen was actually able to block the high-level Hado cast by the Great Kidō with the help of splitting void number 81 without chanting. How far has his Kidō attainment reached? Looking at Tessai Tsukubishi who was trying to chase away, Urahara Kazuki reached out to stop him, then shook his head slightly. Now, we should stabilize Hirako Shinji's condition first. Many of them are seriously injured. If they are not treated, their lives may be in danger. As for Aizen, we will hand it over to room 46 after we return. As long as he has no alibi, and coupled with the confessions of Hirako and others, there will be no place for him in the entire Quiet Spirit Court. Subsequently, he looked at Hirako Shinji and others, frowning slightly. I feel a little thorny in my heart. After all, the Arankar transformation of the Hollow is theoretically irreversible, and Shinigami has the power of the Hollow, so it must be the same reason. After one day, Y Pavilion. Bai Ye looked at the information on the table and drank the wine calmly, shaking the wine glass gently in his hand with a look of determination on his face. Rukongai's abnormal spiritual power fluctuation last night, and today's 5.7 days, none of the captain-level strongmen such as Hirako Shinji, Love Aikawa, etc. appeared in Gote 13. Just for a moment, he understood what had happened. The plot of Visored in the original work had already begun. This was also the first step for Aizen to betray Soul Society and ascend to the open seat. At the same time, a message machine, similar to a modern telephone, was in his hand, as if it had just been used. Sir Bai Ye, do you want to be a civilian? Aside. Feijun looked at Bai Ye. Just now, Yoruichi sent a letter asking for Bai Ye's support, but she didn't know Bai Ye's attitude yet. 098. Back to Snow Bankai. Why are you slandering Aizen? Advertise here. Hear what Feijun said. Bai Ye just shook his head slightly. He only values Yoruichi, Hirako Shinji and others have nothing to do with him. Even if the original plot is followed, nothing will happen to them. It's better to have a drink here. Subsequently, Bai Ye lay lazily on the sofa, shaking the wine glass in his hand, and took a sip. Aside, Feijun looked at Bai Ye with some doubts, but didn't ask any more questions. She just gently leaned beside Bai Ye and rubbed his shoulders. On weekdays, although Bai Ye and Yoruichi don't know if there is a deeper relationship, they look like siblings. Sir Bai Ye will naturally not sit back and watch anything happen to Yoruichi. Maybe he has other considerations. Time flies. In Y Pavilion, a systematic mechanical sound sounded in Bai Ye's ears. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket. Congratulations to the host, who persisted in drinking continuously in 04 Flower Night Pavilion without being disturbed by foreign objects, and was hungover for 3 days and 3 nights. Host Zanpakutō Bankai on his own. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Host unlocks Bankai. Back to snow. Close black lens bracket. Bankai. Return to snow. Bai Ye raised his head slightly, with a hint of excitement in his eyes. Decades. A full few decades. Although his own Zanpakutō Shikai is comparable to other Zanpakuto's Bankai, or even stronger, it is not the real Bankai after all. Now, I finally made up for this shortcoming. Just when Bai Ye realized his Bankai in Y Pavilion. Jing Ling Ting. There was already a rumbling news, and some small and medium-sized nobles heard the news and gathered together to whisper. I heard that today Central 46 sent Kidō and the covert mobile team into Gote 13's team building, and took away several captains and vice-captains. Some people saw that those people's faces had bone masks that were made of bones. Everyone was a little frightened, and at the same time, a terrible suspicion arose in their hearts. Could it be that a large number of Shinigami disappeared from Rukongai before, and many hollows appeared for no reason? Is it possible that the mastermind behind this was an insider from Gote 13? Subsequently, they shook their heads. If it were true that so many captain-level warriors were moles, they could have set off a terrifying rebellion, just like the rebels hundreds of years ago. How could they be arrested by Central 46 for their crimes? Walk. Why? Quote. Let's see the verdict of Room 46. People were talking a lot and had a wait-and-see attitude. Not long after, Central 46, in the huge conference room, 46 sages and judges sat high above, forming a circle. Surrounded by them, he has yellow broken hair, wears Captain Haori, and looks like Urahara Kazuki, a decadent young man. At this time, there was some helplessness in his eyes. I've made it very clear. Last night, after Tessai Tsukubishi and I sensed Rukongai's familiar Reiatsu fluctuations, we went to support him, only to see Hiroko Shinji, Love Aikawa and other captains transformed into this appearance by Aizen. The mastermind behind everything is Aizen. You only need to investigate where he went yesterday to find out. Urahara Kazuki raised his head, watching room 46 quietly. Although these pedantic old men behave in an old-fashioned way, they will also maintain the safety of Soul Society. As long as Aizen is identified as a traitor, room 46 will naturally take action. Behind him was Tessai Tsukubishi, who had always kept a dark face and said nothing. At this time, he was still doubting his life. Last night, his hado was easily blocked by Aizen's splitting void, which made his heart full of joy. Frustration. But, as long as he can confirm the identity of Aizen's traitor, he must participate in the operation to capture Aizen and have a good fight with him. Above, the Inquisitor's face was expressionless. Just waved his hand and pressed a button lightly. Suddenly, a video was played on the big screen on the wall not far away. I only saw it on the video. It's Aizen, working in the 5th Division team building, and there's also a scene where he meets other 010 Shinigami at Gotei 13 headquarters and says hello. Even, Ichimaru Jin also followed him. The time above is actually yesterday. The scenes flashed by quickly. Even last night, when the Rukongai battle took place, Aizen was still in the team building, reading at night and working at his desk. At this point, what else do you have to say? The judge looked at Urahara Kazuki calmly. Although I don't know why you would slander Aizen, he was in the Quiet Soul Court last night and has no conditions to commit a crime. To doubt him, you have to provide corresponding evidence. Since you are the captain, and as the director of the Technology Development Bureau, you have made significant contributions to Soul Society, we will not pursue this matter this time. Quote. Back off. When Urahara Kazuki saw the content of the video, his pupils shrank violently. Impossible. What method did Aizen use? He was able to blind the 46th room. No, blind the sight of the entire Jingling Ting. 099. Have you forgotten the one from Rukongai? Advertise here. No, there must be something wrong. Urahara Kazuki inserted his fingers into his hair and kept rubbing it. What he saw in front of him filled his heart with disbelief. As for the rear, Tessai Tsukubishi, who had always been silent, his eyes widened, his beard almost stood up, and he slammed the table. What are you doing? Urahara Kazuki and I saw clearly, Aizen was in Rukongai last night, how could he be there? Jingling Ting. Tessai Tsukubishi. Above, the judge spoke with a heavy tone and looked at Tessai Tsukubishi quietly with an unquestionable expression. Tessai Tsukubishi's voice gradually fell silent, and his face was a little unwilling. He is the head of Kidō and belongs to Central 46. Naturally, he cannot question the decisions of the gentleman too much. Subsequently, Urahara Kazuki raised his head suddenly. So, about Hiroko Shinji, Odoribashi Rojiro, Love Aikawa. Since there is nothing you can do about Aizen. So, the most important thing now is to treat Hiroko Shinji and others. Regarding the issue of Aizen, we can only discuss it in the future. Now, in Urahara Kazuki's heart, Aizen seemed to be shrouded in a fog. It's not just the ability to fake the real thing. He could also sense the arrogance, madness, and absolute confidence beneath Aizen's silent appearance. That is the momentum that only the truly strong can develop. There was no time to think more. Only, next moment. The words spoken by the judge made Urahara Kazuki's heart feel cold. Although after investigation, the possibility that they are behind the scenes is very slim, but it is really unbelievable that a Shinigami has the power of a hollow. After due consideration and to avoid such information flowing into Rukongai and causing unnecessary disturbances, we have decided to destroy them. The Inquisitor's words were cold and unfeeling. Below, Tessai Tsukubishi had veins popping out on his forehead. He was about to say something, but Urahara Kazuki reached out to stop him and just looked at the gentleman in front of him calmly. We know. Finished. Then he left directly with Tessai Tsukubishi. Urahara, why are you? As soon as he left Central 46, Tessai Tsukubishi looked at Urahara Kazuki with confusion. His chest was still rising and falling slightly. The previous anger did not dissipate, but became more intense the more he thought about it. Room 46 is too arbitrary. Hiroko Shinji and others are all captain-level warriors who have made significant contributions to Soul Society. But if something like this happens, do you have to abandon them all? Until then, only then did Tessai Tsukubishi see through the men in Room 46. What they protect is not the Soul Society, but their own Soul Society. All factors that threaten their rule will be ruthlessly eliminated. Tsukubishi, can our words change the attitude of Room 46? Urahara Kazuki just sighed and patted my Shansai's shoulder. At this point, we can only look at ourselves. I want to save them, send them to the present world, and escape from Soul Society's control. Urahara Kazuki's words were calm, but they contained a huge amount of information. Aside, Tessai Tsukubishi also reacted and looked at Urahara Kazuki in shock. He didn't expect that the director of the Technology Development Bureau, who had always been secretive, would act so boldly and decisively. Even he himself never thought about resisting the 46th chamber, he just wanted to solve the problem within the rules, but Urahara jumped directly outside the rules. But how do we leave? Tessai Tsukubishi felt confused and agreed with Urahara's point of view, and then asked with some doubts. Backquote, us. Urahara Kazuki grinned. We are not fighting on our own, Yoruichi will definitely help us. Not long after, in the quiet courtyard, a beautiful girl wearing captain's feathery clothes, black skin and purple hair looked at the decadent man in front of her and sighed helplessly. Why? Quote, Urahara, I knew that nothing good would happen when you came here. Yoruichi clenched his fists. Although she had heard about it beforehand, when Urahara said it herself, she still felt unbelievable and the huge amount of information filled her mind. In just one good day, half of Gotei 13's captain and vice captain gained the power of the Hollow, and were about to be destroyed by Central 46. Just tell me whether you can help or not. Urahara took a sip of tea, with a rare solemn look in her eyes. Help. Yoruichi nodded decisively. She has a good relationship with Urahara, Hiroko Shinji, Love Aikawa, Yadomaru Lisa and others. She has always been enthusiastic and cheerful, so naturally she cannot just sit idly by. Then shall we leave now? Yoruichi stood up. Have you forgotten someone? In Rukongai, the person with the strongest combat power below the captain. Urahara Kazuki's face showed a trace of expectation. 100. The legend of Bai Ye is everywhere in the world. Advertise here. Rukongai. Aside. Tessai Tsukubishi sounded confused, and then his pupils shrank slightly as if he thought of something. Although, during these 30 years, the one in Rukongai didn't do anything big, and even often disappeared from everyone's sight. But, on the rivers and lakes, his legend is everywhere. That heaven-defying record and the deterrent power of strategic level combat power have made his prestige not decrease but increase, and it has not faded even in the past 30 years. Urahara looked at Yoruichi. There was a trace of expectation in his eyes. According to legend, that man had a close relationship with Yoruichi. There are also rumors in the jingling court that the Shihouin family has the idea of getting married to Bai Ye. According to Urahara Kazuki's observations and Yoruichi's attitude, this 083 is not a rumor at all, but a fact. If Bai Ye intends to marry into the Shihouin family, I'm afraid Yoruichi's parents will agree immediately. Based on the relationship between Bai Ye and Yoruichi, if something happens to Yoruichi, he will definitely take action. Now, what they have to do is to defy the entire Jingling Ting. If Bai Ye can get more power, I am afraid that old man Yamamoto will be afraid. After all, strategic level, strong man can destroy the entire Jingling Ting if he is not careful. Jingling Ting. Even if Central 46, Bai Ye's power cannot be ignored. Want Bai Ye to help? Shihouin Yoruichi shook his head slightly. I'm afraid you are thinking too much. Because of his understanding of Bai Ye, Yoruichi naturally knows what kind of person Bai Ye is. If something happens to him, he will definitely not sit idly by day and night. But, he has nothing to do with Hiroko Shinji, Love Aikawa and others. It is still a bit difficult to force him to take action. Not to mention, she also didn't want to involve Bai Ye in such a complicated incident because of her own affairs. Urahara Kazuki choked on her words. Do not believe. In front of them, Yoruichi sent a message to Bai Ye using the messenger machine and informed Bai Ye of the general situation. But as time passes, this message seemed to have fallen into disfavor, and there was no reply from Guie. That Bai Ye is really, just like the rumors. Tessai Tsukubishi sighed softly. He had never met Bai Ye, but only heard about Bai Ye's character from rumors. Now, I finally got to see it. In that case, I won't force it. Urahara immediately adjusted his mentality. This situation was naturally within his scope of consideration. Even if Bai Ye doesn't help, and only relies on their 3 captain-level combat capabilities, this matter still has a high success rate. Just adding Bai Ye can make the success rate infinitely close to 100%. Good. Every time there is a delay, things will get worse, so we will take action now. Yoruichi speaks decisively. The 3 of them started taking action directly. Central 46, the large underground prison, has a few more sneaky figures. The hollow captains who were trapped inside were stuffed into Urahara Kazuki's specially made prosthetic skeletons one by one. The channel connecting Soul Society and reality was opened by Urahara. Hiroko Shinji and others were stuffed into the corpses and transported to the present world one by one. Time flies. In Seireitei, tea houses, restaurants, and streets, countless people lowered their heads and whispered. Have you heard about the verdict of Room 46? What sentence? That is, Hiroko Shinji, Love Aikawa and other captains were all ordered to be exterminated by Room 46. The specific circumstances and reasons have not been announced yet. Some people's eyes widened, their hearts filled with disbelief, and they stood there stunned as if they had been struck by lightning. If this rumor is true, Seireitei will lose 4 captains this time, 4 strong men at the vice captain level. It's equivalent to half a Gotei 13. Since the creation of Gotei 13, there has never been such a heavy loss. But, just when everyone was talking about it, boom. Distance. Suddenly there was a powerful Reiatsu. It covered the entire Seireitei in just an instant. This force. It seemed to remind them of the fear that the strategic level powerhouse Bai Ye brought to them 30 years ago, and his strength that was like a natural disaster. This is the second-class spiritual power. No, the limit of the second-class spiritual power. Who is it? When did such a strong person appear in Jingling Court? Looking at the direction, it's the underground prison of Central 46. Could it be that something went wrong in the prison and the 40-meter room sent strong men to suppress it? 101. Mole City Kenpachi. Big prison confrontation. Advertise here. This Reiatsu. In the quiet spirit garden, some old men were trembling, feeling the Reiatsu coming from the direction of Central 46, and their fingers were trembling slightly. Now, a rather familiar feeling arose in their hearts. That Reiatsu is far away, as if it doesn't belong to this era. If it's correct, then it should be the superior Kenpachi, Mole City Kenpachi-sama. Wasn't he sentenced to eternal hell? Why did he come out so early? Hear this. Everyone was surprised, and then the pot exploded. Mole City Kenpachi. A familiar name, it can be said that Mole City Kenpachi's ability is the strongest in history. If first generation Gotei 13 is the most powerful generation. So, this Mole City Kenpachi has surpassed first generation Kenpachi and truly embarked on his own path of kendo. And, not only did he kill Kenpachi Kashiashiki who was invited to the Zero Division, he also had greater potential than the Zero Division members. His Bankai can even be integrated with the entire Seireitei. It can be said, he is the third, strategic level, combat power in the Jingling Ting Zhongming after Mr. Yamamoto and Bai Ye. Horrible. I really don't know why Central 46 would release such a person. Someone sighed. I can't even understand who can make Mole City Kenpachi personally take action. Now in the entire Seireitei, there are not many people who can make Mole City Kenpachi personally take action. In Jingling Ting, Rukongai, all the civilians were talking about it. Reiatsu from Central 46 was like a vast ocean, surging and sweeping across the entire Seireitei in an instant. And this power is still spreading crazily towards Rukongai, and most of the Soul Society is shocked by the appearance of Mole City Kenpachi. At the Gotei 13 headquarters, Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, Hiraku Shunsui, Jashiro Yukataki and others all raised their heads and looked into the distance. Hiraku Shunsui narrowed his eyes slightly. It's really incredible, it seems that Hirako and the others are in danger. As captain, naturally, he knows some information that ordinary people don't know. It seems that the appearance of Bai Ye and the recent ambiguous attitude of old man Yamamoto have given Room 46 a sense of urgency. They actually released the big killer weapon of Mole City Kenpachi. Only, a mocking smile appeared on Hiraku Shunsui's lips. Room 46 really thought they could control the Mole City Kenpachi. That man was a fierce man who almost overturned the entire Soul Society. In terms of ferocity, only Bai Ye could compete with him. Hiraku Shunsui, who has been the captain for hundreds of years and has worked with Mole City Kenpachi, naturally knows how pervert and powerful his abilities are. It is not inferior to Bai Ye's attack in Rukongai. I wonder what Mole City Kenpachi would be like if he faced off against Bai Ye. Hiraku Shunsui had a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Urahara, Yoruichi, and Tessai Tsukabishi's actions had long been guessed in their minds. Originally, their duty was to abide by the orders of Room 46 and arrest them. But, this time, old man Yamamoto directly ignored Room 46's orders. The entire Gotei 13 senior management was dissatisfied with Room 46's attitude of treating captain-level experts as tools. 0. Please give me flowers. After all, this time they can abandon Hirako Shinji, Love Akawa and other captains. If they encounter a situation in the future, will they also be abandoned by Room 46? Yoruichi also participated in the operation this time. Bai Ye can ignore Urahara and Tessai Tsukabishi, but Yoruichi is equivalent to someone who watched Bai Ye grow up and has a very close relationship with Bai Ye on weekdays. With Bai Ye's freewheeling personality, if Yoruichi is threatened, he will definitely rally the people. 0. Now, a huge island in the middle of the lake. Surrounded by a blue and clear lake, there is only a small road connecting the island in the middle of the lake to the outside world, and it is surrounded by towering walls. The area that was originally full of guards standing guard was now deserted. A few miles away, dozens of Shinigami wearing black death-defying uniforms gathered here. Mole City Lord Kenpachi has stopped the thief at the entrance of the underground prison. I don't know what the situation is there now. Someone said worriedly. Because Reiatsu was too low, they couldn't get close to the center of the incident. I can only look at the island in the middle of the lake not far away, an ordinary, closed door. Although it is only a few meters high and looks like an ordinary large iron gate, there is a cave inside. This is also the entrance to the 46-room underground prison. Now, Mole Castle Kenpachi and the traitor who came to rescue Hirako Shinji and others are facing each other inside. 102. What kind of power is this? Advertise here. Now, large underground prison. It's cold, damp, and there's an unsettling smell everywhere. The restless Reiatsu poured out crazily, and the surrounding walls were shaking slightly. Two groups of people are confronting each other. Yoruichi, luck is not on our side this time. Urahara Kazuki's eyes narrowed slightly, looking at the elegant man not far away who was wearing a haori, thin, with a black ponytail and two long bangs parted in the middle. He serves as the director of the Technology Development Bureau. Naturally, you can access information that is difficult for ordinary people to access. Mole City Shuangye 073 is also called Mole City Kenpachi. It can be called the most powerful Kenpachi in the history of Soul Society. Even the first-generation Kenpachi Unohana Retsu is inferior to this person. Only because he is a true strategic level combat power. This person, aside, Yoruichi and Tessai Tsukubishi also looked solemn. The oncoming powerful Reiatsu caused cold sweat to flow from their foreheads. That is the true second-level peak spiritual power. Maybe there is only one opportunity left to break through and enter the first-class spiritual power. Although they couldn't see the Zanpakutō in his hand, everyone knew that his Zanpakutō had been integrated with the entire Seireitei. It can be said, the ground they are standing on, or the entire underground prison, is an extension of Mole City Kenpachi Zanpakutō. Leave the people behind and you can leave. Not far away. Mole City Kenpachi had no expression on his face and just looked at Urahara Kazuki indifferently. Urahara Kazuki opened a portal to the present world in the underground prison and has transferred all the captains who were hollowed. For Central 46, this is an extremely serious provocation. After all, over the years, Central 46 has only suffered defeat at the hands of Bai Ye. If Hiroko and other captains are easily kidnapped this time, the majesty of Central 46 will be greatly weakened. Sorry, I'm afraid that won't work. Urahara Kazuki's back was wet with cold sweat, but he still had an indifferent smile on his lips, and gently placed his hand on the handle of the Zanpakutō knife. As captain, he hasn't made a move for a long time. Well, is this your choice? Mole City Kenpachi spoke calmly. Although I don't like Room 46, I don't want to get involved in this kind of thing. But he still has other things to do. If he has the opportunity to escape, he must make good use of it. Otherwise, if he is imprisoned in the hell again and wants to come out again, he will have to spend hundreds or even thousands of medical treatments. Now, I still have to obey the orders of Room 46 for the time being. Let's start by catching them. Boom. The ground suddenly trembled crazily, and the originally dark underground prison suddenly became brighter. Yoruichi and others looked at the source of the light. I saw that around Mole City Kenpachi, there were densely packed and unknown numbers of humanoid spirit beings. All of them were made up of spirit beings, and they were emitting a thorny light in the dark underground. This is. Yoruichi's pupils shrank slightly and he murmured softly. Although these humanoid spirit beings are only Reiatsu at the level of an official, they are so numerous that they can be certified. Moreover, some of the extremely bright humanoid spirits vaguely exude third-level spiritual power, which are captain-level Reiatsu. Just for a moment. At the same time, this ability to create clones and use them as one's own thugs is just one of Yulu Tuoliu's most ordinary abilities. As for other abilities, there are no records in the data. The power of Yulu Takuli is comparable to Ryujin Jaka. Maybe. What kind of power is this? Tessai Tsukubishi clenched his fists tightly and stared straight at the hundreds of humanoid spirits in front of him. Their combined power. The earth sank, and the space seemed to be trembling faintly. His eyes were filled with hundreds of humanoid spirits, and all that came his way were heavy attacks. It even gave him the illusion of facing Captain Yamamoto. Rukongai, Flower Knight Pavilion. Urahara Kazuki and others are at a disadvantage. All we know is that when Kenpachi was able to kill Kenpachi, Zanpakutō was a great contributor. Urahara Kazuki smiled bitterly. Zanpakutō, rain and dew Tuoliu. He didn't need to think too much. It can be said. Boom. Bai Ye raised his head slightly, looking in the direction of the underground prison with calm eyes, and the Reiatsu in his body slowly surged. Apart from Captain Yamamoto of 1.1, Bai Ye is the only one who can compete with Soul Society today. 103. Master Aizen is kind-hearted. Advertise here. This power. Large underground prison. Urahara Kazuki's pupils contracted violently, and he was holding a Zanpakutō. Even if he used Shikai, there was nothing he could do. Those humanoid spirits seemed to be fearless and tireless, attacking towards them. As for Bankai, if you use Bankai yourself, it will only treat the symptoms but not the root cause. As long as you are still in the quiet spirit garden, you will not be able to escape the attack of Mole City Kenpachi. Aside. Bang bang bang. The sound of fists hitting the flesh was mixed with the roar of Kidō. A dark-skinned beauty was sweating profusely from the battle with the humanoid spirit child, and her brows were full of exhaustion. Shihouin Yoruichi's fearful eyes looked at the Mole City Kenpachi not far away, and behind him, the humanoid spirits were still being continuously created. Mole City Kenpachi. Although most of these humanoid souls are of the rank of chief officer, they are too big to hold up. Even Yoruichi feels a feeling of emptiness in his body at this time. This is a sign of excessive Reiatsu consumption. Fortunately, Mole City Kenpachi doesn't have any murderous intentions, otherwise we might all die here. A wry smile appeared at the corner of Yoruichi's mouth. He, Urahara, Tessai Tsukubishi, the three captains, were all as weak as babies in front of the most powerful Kenpachi in history. I wonder if Bai Ye will come. Tessai Tsukubishi also panted and released Kidō, and he was busy dealing with the attacking humanoid spirits, with a trace of expectation in his eyes. Although he has not met Bai Ye. However, Soul Society is now full of legends about Bai Ye. If it were Bai Ye, maybe he is really the opponent of this Mole City Kenpachi. Opposite, Mole City Kenpachi's face was expressionless, but he was paying attention to the changes in the field. In addition to the yellow-haired man who looks very weak and decadent, I'm afraid there is something else hidden that needs to be paid attention to. Although the strength of the other two was good, they did not attract his attention. But that's not what I need to focus on right now. It's a powerful enemy from Rukongai. Suddenly, Mole City Kenpachi seemed to feel something. He raised his head and looked in the direction of Rukongai, with a smile finally showing on his lips. At the same time, outside world, the civilians of the Seireitei, feeling the increasingly powerful Reiatsu coming from the direction of the underground prison, started talking one after another, and their pupils shrank slightly. This force is powerful, far better than before. Moreover, in addition to the Reiatsu of Mole City Kenpachi, everyone can feel the other three Reiatsu. That's the tribute from Urahara, Captain Yami. 21. It seems that they have already fought. This is a battle involving the four captains. After 30 years, Soul Society finally broke the previous stability. Everyone is either worried or worried. At this time, they all think of the fear of being dominated by Bai Ye 30 years ago. Will this reappearance of Mole City Kenpachi become the second Bai Ye? Gote 13. The 5th Division Team Building. Captain Aizen, it's time for you to rest. A team member wearing a Black Death uniform looked respectfully at a man with brown hair and square glasses who was full of gentleness. Aizen Sosuke, Vice Captain of the 5th Division. No. Due to the disappearance of Hiroko Shinji. In a few days, I'm afraid the appointment letter for Aizen will be issued from above. Aizen will take over Hiroko's position as captain and become the new captain of the 5th Division. But, at the same time, you can vaguely see the radiating lines, forming a shape similar to a ghost drawing formation. He is such a strong man who is about to serve as captain, but he is still so serious about his work. This is an isolation formation that can isolate all Reiatsu and the fluctuations of the aura within the formation. In his sight, from last night to now, Captain Aizen has been dealing with official duties and has not stepped out of the door. The huge laboratory is full of instruments and gardens. Hey, you are just too serious and kind. The team member sighed softly and put a soft silk robe on Aizen. He could even feel Aizen's slight breathing and body temperature. Experiments have made huge progress. I finally succeeded. No need, you go and rest first, I will take care of it right away. Within the formation at this time, Rukongai, more, there are various spirits soaked in jars whose life and death are unknown. A man wearing square-rimmed glasses who looked exactly like Captain Aizen in the 5th Division Team Building had a glint in his eyes this time. Aizen speaks softly. Buried deep underground. 177 inches 104. The vacancies of 8 captains. Advertise here. Lord Aizen, is this really okay? Aside, a silver-haired boy with squinting eyes looked at the thing in front of him, his expression revealing a trace of confusion and vague worry. In a huge container, there was a monster that was completely black, but its face was covered with white bone armor. This was something Aizen created by fusing many spirits and adding the power star of the void. Named White. That is, Zubai. Silver. When did Aizen-sama fail? A man with dreadlocks, dark skin and an eye patch spoke softly, feeling the wail of the soul mixed in the huge jar in front of him. Tusen Konami looked a little unbearable, but then became firm again. I just keep giving myself hypnosis in my heart. For Lord Aizen's grand plan and the justice of the future world, these so-called sacrifices are a necessary stage. Even though Rukongai has sacrificed tens of thousands of civilians for Aizen's experiment, as long as it succeeds in the end, it doesn't matter even if 100,000 civilians are sacrificed. This is a new hope. There are too many monsters in Soul Society. Let's put him in the present world. That is his stage. Shubai. Aizen spoke softly, looked at Shubai in front of him, and nodded slightly. If Shubai is kept in Rukongai, I'm afraid it won't take more than a few days. If he offends Y Pavilion, he may be crushed to death by Bai Ye. Soul Society, not only Captain Yamamoto, but also Bai Ye recently, and now even the monster Kenpachi of Mole City has been released, and he has done his best in Tohungui's silent experiment. There are more and more monsters in Soul Society, so he naturally doesn't think that himself, who is now placed in the 5th Division Team Building through Kyoko Suigetsu, will not be noticed. But except for Bai Ye who ignored the control, and Mole City Kenpachi who had never seen his Kyoko Suigetsu Shikai, even old man Yamamoto didn't care at all. As long as your luck is not too bad, you can still buy a certain amount of time through Kyoko Suigetsu. But, the jingling courtyard is very lively right now. Even underground, Ichimaru Jin can sense the natural disaster like Reiatsu in the Seireitei. It can be said that this is one of the most powerful Reiatsu he has ever seen, except for his old classmate from the Spiritual Arts Academy. Yin, don't worry, these things have nothing to do with us. Aizen smiled slightly and spoke softly. Hiroko and the others are just some failed experiments, and now they have lost their value to him. As for Yoruichi, Urahara, Tessai Tsukubishi, only Urahara Kazuki needs attention. As long as the Soul Society is not destroyed, the beating of life and death outside has nothing to do with his experiment. At this time, Gotei 13. In the flowery courtyard, a decadent man with an unshaven beard looked at the sky not far away with eyes like dead fish eyes. There was the moment when Reiatsu was thick and Mole City Kenpachi showed his kamui. Things are getting difficult. Hiroku Shunsui put a straw hat on his head. Everyone knows about the relationship between Yoruichi and Bai Ye. If Yoruichi dies or is seriously injured in this battle, he dare not think about what Bai Ye will do. Are you afraid of demolishing the Seireitei? Or say something heartfelt to the gentleman in room 46. Hiss. Okay. Now, the only remaining captains, Shiba Ishin and Jashiro Yukitake, are gathered here. Jashiro Yukitake's eyes were even more worried. Urahara, Yoruichi, 2 more captains, plus Hiroko Shinji and the others. This time our Gotei 13 directly lost 6 captains. Masters. It's equivalent to half the number. Even if there are still some reserved talents, it's not enough at all. Jashiro sighed. It can be said that this is the heaviest loss for Gotei 13 since the battle between first generation Gotei 13 and the ancestor of the Quincy, Yhwach. Mr. Yamamoto may also have a headache. Kenpachi, captain of the 11th Division, and Kuchiki Ginling, captain of the 6th Division, were killed by Bai Ye. After all, the vacancies for 8 captains have been determined. Who is going to fill the gap? This is a big problem.